for the mainstream media this week in what the Democrat mayor of Palm Beach County calls a intentionally false report and a half-cooked conspiracy theory based on his personal knowledge as to how the vaccination rollout has progressed in the freedom-loving state of Florida. And again, I was one months ago. I remember when I got back from my trip down the state of Florida, and at the time, North Carolina was still very much in a lockdown type of state. Many private bars had to remain closed. There were severe limits on capacity still, and there were a number of different things. Schools, in large part, were still all virtual because at that time we were afraid of a surge during the holiday season. So many of the local school districts pushed the in-person instruction for elementary schools back a couple of weeks, along with the hybrid learning for the middle and high schoolers. And all in the while, of course, the state of Florida has had kids going back to school for in-person instruction for the better part of the year. And it's amazing, particularly when people leave their lockdown communist states like up in New York and New Jersey, and they go to somewhere like Florida where it's relatively open and free, and to see the pictures, the commentary, people are just happy generally to embrace that freedom that many people have been yearning for a long, long time. It never gets old. And in fact, I have a few friends going back down to the state of Florida, and even here in Wilmington, really good friends that I've known for the better part of 16 years. They've, in fact, totally picked up and relocated there for the last 4 months. They said, you know what? Tired of North Carolina. Don't know what necessarily is playing out. We're in a position here where we're able to work remotely. So why not go somewhere where we can operate, assess our own risks and do things the way we once knew, as they've been doing for quite some time in Florida. And not that I'm a big fan of Major League Baseball right now, but how about the state of Texas, a place that I will be later on this week, hopefully, if we go through all the necessary NCAA testing protocols this week to get our season back underway for the Coastal Carolina University baseball team. Yesterday, the Texas Rangers of Major League Baseball held their opening day at their new Globe Life Park, I believe is the name of it. 38,000 fans cozied up against one another in that ballpark to watch their Texas Rangers play on opening day. The only Major League Baseball stadium and, stadium for any sporting event or concert type of venue that has allowed full capacity across the country. The state of Texas moving forward with that this week. And they made that announcement, several months ago, saying, listen, once baseball season gets here, we're opening the doors. There are going to be limited restrictions, and we want to pack the house like it once was. Good for the Texas Rangers, despite some of the blowback that they were receiving on social media and across many of the news outlets this past week in the buildup to opening day. We're 23 minutes past the hour. We'll be speaking with Senator Paul Newton of Cabarrus County here this morning, a state senator here within the North Carolina General Assembly. He'll give us the latest going on in the city of Raleigh as it pertains to our state government. Last week, of course, Republicans in the North Carolina General Assembly started to pick up the pieces from King Cooper's year of executive overreach. Of course, those discussions continue as far as limiting executive power in emergency types of situations. And we'll get his thoughts on some of the efforts that are moving forward in regards to the Emergency Management Act, which would require, under this proposal, more input from various statewide officials when we do declare an emergency, like we have typically understood during hurricane season, for instance. But no one could fathom the year that has played out in front of us, and maybe now a good time to bring some checks and balances to the system rather than have just one person set the course and move forward, yippee-ki-yay, with the science and the data, of course, guiding many of these decisions. We've had State Treasurer Dale Falwell on countless times to talk about, how he, along with other members of this Council of State, would be able to provide some clarity and some really good insight as far as their roles and responsibilities in the impact of shutting down a state for a year completely, what ramifications that, may cause in the future. This is a discussion that continues in Raleigh. at the end of the day, if it does move forward with the support of Republicans, mainly in the House and the state Senate, will Governor Cooper sign a bill that would ultimately, limit his decision rights in an emergency situation? And this would be for any governor into the future, of course, Republican or Democrat. The likelihood of that happening, I would say, maybe when pigs fly. That's when Governor Cooper or any politician in a position of power would actually sign a bill that would limit their decision rights in certain situations. Nonetheless, Republicans starting to move forward with that legislation at the State General Assembly. They've also passed bills to give families a summer school option, and again, to rein in the governor's emergency powers due to the executive overreach. So starting to pick up the pieces from King Cooper's year of overreach that we have seen play out firsthand. Senator Newton will also talk about the Election Integrity Act that is moving through the General Assembly as well. This would make some changes and solidify the election processes. Now, with the 2022 midterms, of course, still a little bit far out, but this is a good time to revisit a lot of the election laws and see if we can tighten some things up, provide different sorts of identification cards. In fact, this bill through the Election Integrity Act, it would provide $5 million in funding for literally the state to go to your home and provide you a government-issued identification card, which then you could in turn use as an ID when you do cast a ballot, whether that be an absentee ballot or, at the polls through the various days of early voting or on Election Day. Election law, well, a topic of conversation these days nationally, and North Carolina no different. So looking forward to that conversation just after 8 o'clock with State Senator Paul Newton of Cabarrus County. Local attorney Tom Goolsby also with us in the second hour of the show as well.
Hey, yeah, I want to shoot, baby, shoot.
Ooh, how you doing, baby? No, not you.
My name's John Hennett, commercial real estate broker and vice president of Eastern Carolina's commercial real estate here in Wilmington. I also have a side hustle as a residential real estate appraiser. And if you're interested in selling, buying, investing, or you're just curious about real estate in general, give me a call, 910-619-3430. I also have a tremendous amount of community pride in Wilmington and the small businesses that make up our community. Collectively, the small businesses in our community are the largest single employer, and it's important that we support them. That's why I'm here to talk to you today about Stevens Ace Hardware at 1831 Dawson Street. Joey Stevens and his team are the nicest retailers you'll ever meet, and they're very courteous. And oftentimes I'll come in and I'll ask for direction, and they don't tell me where it is, they show me where it is by leading me there. So I encourage you to support the small business in our community like Stevens Ace Hardware on Dawson Street. And again, if you have any questions about real estate, don't hesitate to give me a call at 910-619-3430.
We wouldn't sell you a dining room table, so don't buy a medical device from a furniture store. US Med Express is Wilmington's leading supplier of golden technology lift and sleep chairs, carrying a variety of models in our showroom at 1733 Dawson Street. Our chairs lead the industry in power lift recliner features and advances in technology. Our chairs are FDA certified as medical devices, which means it's 100% tax deductible and helps with a number of medical conditions, including arthritis, poor circulation, and sleep apnea. Give us a call today at 910-500-6162 or stop by and experience our chairs for yourself at 1733 Dawson Street. That's 910-500-6162. 1733 Dawson Street in Wilmington. US Med Express.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
I'm State Farm Agent Rob Renz, and I want to help you get to a better state. We are one of the fastest growing and most reviewed insurance agencies in Wilmington. That's because Our customers love the personalized attention that we give to you. Let us help you get to a better state by visiting our website at ilminsurance.com. That's ilminsurance.com. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
As we move past the 9 o'clock hour this morning, we'll be speaking with Louisville-based conservative commentator Allie Bloyd. She has a new book out discussing firearms and firearms safety, of course, as guns and gun control are once again atop the list for many in Washington and on the minds of many Americans after we saw mass shootings in Georgia and Colorado. Of course, the narrative on both of those has been distorted, as it typically is, by many in the media. The one down in Georgia, the mentally unstable, sexually frustrated lunatic decides to light up a couple of ha-ha spas and kills 8 people, 6, of course, including Asian women. We have to make that caveat every time we name this shooting in Atlanta to set the narrative, because the rise in crimes against Asian Americans is ever so prevalent in our country these days. And then in the state of Colorado, we had the mass shooting. But once we learned the suspect's name, that quick story has been quickly buried in their narrative efforts to push all to blame when we talk about mass shootings in the country towards Whitey and the AR-15. We've of course broken down some of those stats as far as just the percentage, because we like statistics and data to guide our decisions here in the country. And we gave you that information, and I point you to a story at FEE.org, FEE.org, Foundation for Economic Education, that looked at the homicide numbers in the country between 2007 and 2017. And we brought you those numbers, but we'll reiterate it and rehash it here again for you this morning. And I know this because it's ingrained in my brain at this point. 13,657 people killed on average between that 10-year period. 0.1% of those murdered were killed as a result of a weapon known as the AR-15. A person utilizing that weapon, by the way, in their efforts to wreak havoc and cause chaos throughout much of the country. So that's the numbers, based on the information provided by the FBI. So Allie Bloyd will join us to talk about, one, the rapid rise of the woman gun owner across the country. Who is she, and why are guns important to her and her lifestyle, and why gun ownership, often among women, cuts across the political divide. We'll talk about her new book, Uncensored America, that deals with gun control. And we look forward to that conversation just after 9 o'clock. And our friend Ashley Varner from the Freedom Foundation will also join us in that third and final hour to talk about a first-of-its-kind lawsuit that was filed in late March against the Los Angeles County school system, along with the Los Angeles County Teachers Union. This lawsuit, filed in L.A. County Superior Court by 4 sets of parents represented by the Freedom Foundation, in which Ashley is a part of, alleged that their children have, quote, variously become suicidal, isolated, depressed, addicted, obese, and had their future prosperity needlessly imperiled because of the prolonged absence from the classroom. In L.A., the lawsuit contends that the school district, along with the teachers union, is exploiting COVID fears to advance a polarizing political agenda that has nothing to do whatsoever with wages, benefits, or workplace concerns. So we'll hear from Ashley about the first-of-its-kind lawsuit. Not that they're one to tie up the courts even further than they already are, but nonetheless, we have seen litigation play out throughout various court systems in the country, including right here in North Carolina, challenging a lot of these orders and a lot of these decisions that have been made by those with the decision rights to control us and our society. We will get to that with Ashley Varner just after 9:30 this morning. And also a little nugget going back to our first guest just after 8 o'clock in regards to statewide news. State Senator Paul Newton from Cabarrus County will be with us. We'll talk about the Election Integrity Act, the emergency management powers discussions that are going on. Did you know that Republicans here in North Carolina are also pitching another reduction to your individual income tax in the state? Including Senator Newton, they plan to push legislation that would decrease the state's income tax rate of 5.25% to under 5% for next year. Of course, there are other states across the country that have zero state income tax, the state of Florida being one of them, along with the state of Texas. I think Wyoming is another. North Carolina trying to remain competitive with many of these states that various people are relocating to all across the country to make us more of a tax haven rather than a tax hell, which tens of thousands of people are fleeing certain parts of the country because of just that. All right, we've hit the bottom of the hour, +5. Let's get to the local news. When we get back, we've been getting some reaction still over the past 24 hours surrounding news here in town from the shooting that took place on 7th and Kidder, along with the fire in Carolina Beach, and, of course, the death of the vice principal, David Bostian, at Noble Middle School. We'll get to some of those reactions when we get back here on the Big Talker FM.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWI News. Week 2 of the Derek Chauvin trial began yesterday. The Minneapolis police chief says now fired officer Derek Chauvin violated departmental policy in pinning his knee on George Floyd's neck and keeping him down after Floyd had stopped resisting and was in distress. Chief Madera Arando took the stand on day 6 of Chauvin's trial in the death of the 46-year-old black man last May. The chief says continuing to kneel on Floyd's neck once he was handcuffed behind his back and lying on his stomach was, quote, in no way, shape, or form part of department policy or training. Just days after UNC men's basketball head coach Roy Williams announced his retirement, UNC Chapel Hill moved forward with his replacement, and they didn't look far. Herbert Davis, one of Williams' top assistants and former Tar Heels player, was announced as head basketball coach yesterday. The 50-year-old Davis, who played for Coach Dean Smith from 1988 to 1992, has spent the past 9 seasons as an assistant coach and will be the first black coach in the program's history. Wilmington City Council will meet tonight to discuss a variety of topics. Council will discuss a resolution authorizing the purchase and installation of security cameras at the city's North Waterfront Park, slated to open this summer. There will also be a second reading of an ordinance to reduce the speed limit from 40 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour on Greenville Loop Road and from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour in the Bradley Creek Elementary School zone. And the city of Southport announcing the North Carolina 4th of July Festival has once again been canceled due to the coronavirus pandemic. Mayor Joe Catenacci cited the governor's executive order, which does not support mass gatherings of thousands of people at this point. Annually, the 4th of July Festival typically draws between 40 and 50,000 people. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Storm Track 3 forecast. We're expecting more sunshine as we go throughout the day today and above average temperatures getting into the low 80s. Inland of the coastline and along the immediate coastline, we top off in the low to middle 70s. Going to be quite comfortable, so make plans to get outdoors. And the warm temperatures are going to stick around late tonight with clear conditions. Overnight lows are bottoming out into the middle and upper 50s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
Yeah, you know it's bad when even Democrats are blasting the mainstream news media for their disinformation, fake news, and propaganda, particularly covering the state of Florida. And Governor Ron DeSantis, by all indications, has done a phenomenal job over the course of the past year in trying to navigate these rough seas in regards to the pandemic, the lockdowns, the quote-unquote science, and the data. As we mentioned at the top of the hour, even Democrat Palm Beach County Mayor Dave Kerner slammed the 60 Minutes report and called it a half-cooked conspiracy theory in the way that was covered and heavily edited during their program on Sunday night. 910-299-7535. Of course, reaction continues around town in regards to the shooting from the weekend that took the lives of 3, injured 4 others between the ages of 16 and 22 years old. Our county commissioners met last night. Our city officials will meet later on this evening. Our county commission, at least a few of those elected officials had some things to say yesterday, and I'm sure we'll hear more from our city quote-unquote leaders later on this evening. Of course, the death of the vice principal over at Noble Middle School just hours after he was charged with various sex crimes related to an incident that took place back in, the early 1990s. And then this tragic fire that played out in the apartment complex, the condos over at Pleasure Island in Carolina Beach. I mean, to get the story that I read from WWAY and this 27-year-old Callie Ryan, who has a broken back right now after she jumped from her 3rd-story balcony to escape the blaze. I think a lot of questions surrounding the codes and whether or not things were up to snuff when it comes to fire alarms, sprinklers, properly installed firewalls that are meant to contain the blaze from spreading to one fire to the one apartment to the other. These are all questions that will need to be answered over the next several weeks and months. 910-299-7535. Call that you're with us this morning. I hope all is well on your end.
Hey, yeah, great. I guess you saw the interview on Fox News with Hunter Biden.
I saw bits and pieces of it.
Yeah, I mean, I saw most of it, but not all of it. But anyway, Hunter Biden had to stumble. Could have been my laptop. Could have been. Maybe it was. I don't know. It could have been one that was stolen from me.
I mean, could have been. How much white privilege do you have to have so many laptop computers that you don't even know how many you have, or whether or not you still have them, or whether or not they are in one home of yours and not another? I mean that, and I get it. Of course, he was all drugged up, so he wasn't paying attention to many of these things.
And at least we forget it's an Apple product, so that means it was much more expensive than your basic Hewlett-Packard you'd get at Walmart for $2.99. Also, National Propaganda Radio, also taxpayer-funded. They had to issue an apology for flat-out lying to people during the election about Hunter Biden's laptop in general and the information that there actually was an investigation, and they reported that there was not. So.
Well, he's going to be cleared of all. He's going to be cleared of any wrongdoing. I mean, how does that all work when your daddy is in charge, and of course, handpicks the people who will lead these different agencies to then conduct these investigations? It's no surprise that, of course, President Obama during his term with Joe Biden alongside of him as his sidekick, the vice president who never actually got invited to the White House during Obama's term for a personal visit or a visit to hang out behind the scenes with one another. There was no scandal-free for 8 years in America. I mean, what a time to live in the country where there are no scandals within, our political offices in the land of the USA.
Yeah, well, I mean, we could really get into that, especially something called Fast and Furious. But they say FDR's wife pretty much ran the show in his last term, because he was so sick and basically, not really able to fulfill his
duties,
his obligations as president, and his duties. Yeah. But with Biden, I'm not sure I'm sure that it's people like, what's her name? Susan Rice. I'm sure it's people like that. I'm sure it's big name donors that are probably pulling the strings, and he's having staffers pretty much will run the country, or people in his cabinet that are running the country. I think that's one of the reasons why the deep state really hated Donald Trump, because Donald Trump was going to be president. He wasn't going to have the deep state run the country. He came in to be president. And I think that's one of the reasons why they attacked him the way that they did. I think they knew that before he came into office. But enough about that. What I did, you were talking about elections and whatnot this morning. Have you been paying attention or following what's going on in Maricopa County right now, where they're trying their best to do forensic audits on the mail-in ballots and the machines, and they're met with resistance?
Well, no, I have not heard much on that. It hasn't been covered much nationally, so it's been kind of out of sight, out of mind. Enlighten us.
Good reason. Good reason for that. Well, any which way, Maricopa County, the legislators there, they are doing their best to try to get a forensic audit of the ballots, also of the machines, and it's even to the point where they've got this, I believe, Pulis or Hutton involved, and any which way, it's rather interesting. Who knows what they'll find? Who knows what's going to happen? But they certainly are trying to. The left is definitely trying to stop and demonize all efforts to dig in and do an investigation. If there was nothing to hide, and in my opinion, this is just my opinion for what it's worth, they'd say, sure, let's open the doors, let's have sunshine here. You're not going to find anything. Come on in. Let's do your audits. You'll do your audits and you'll be done, and the American people can rest easy at night knowing that they have fair elections. But obviously that's not the case. So,
well, and this is obvious that we see across the board when we move forward from the 2020 cycle, whether we're rehashing and looking at the validity of certain ballots or looking to secure the processes and set some standards that everyone knows about years ahead of the next national election, which would be, of course, November of 2022. All efforts to attack and pull back any type of economic activity from states that are re-engaging in these discussions surrounding election law, met with, of course, the full force of the mainstream media and the Democrat Party, as we're seeing in the state of Georgia. And we're starting to hear whispers of that here in North Carolina with the Election Integrity Act starting to gain some traction within the North Carolina General Assembly. In fact, State Senator Paul Newton will be discussing this proposal that is moving through the halls of the General Assembly through the last several weeks, and he'll break down specifically, of course, what some of the details of this proposal will include when he joins us at a Cabarrus County just after 8 o'clock in about 15 minutes from now. We're 13 minutes in front of the hour. If you'd like to call in, our number is 910-299-7535. I want to bring us back to the local conversation for a moment because we're beginning to receive some reaction from our elected officials locally in regards to that shooting that took place over the weekend, along with the suicide of a longtime educator in the area just hours after he was charged with crimes that date back to the early 90s. In fact, I talked with a middle school teacher at Noble last night for a few minutes, and we've actually had some inquiries into our station as far as emails, phone calls, as far as they go, just trying to, I guess, allow the public to see another side of this story in some light that many of the news outlets here locally have focused, solely on the victim of this, the teenager at the time, and now this woman in her mid-40s, and maybe we can shine some light on both ends of the story. Not that we're going to make much sense of it, and I would expect that my words over the next 10 or so minutes will be completely twisted out of context, but nonetheless, people are calling in. They want to speak on the behalf of Mr. Bostian, who killed himself over the past weekend, Friday afternoon, after he was released from jail just hours after these crimes were levied against him. And many people are speaking out favorably about this man, and they truly believe, based on some of the comments that I've heard, that the guy made a mistake, and here he is paying the ultimate price for that some 30 years later. We'll talk about that when we get back here on the Big Talker FM.
All right, spring is in full swing. There's no better time to freshen up your home than right now. And our friends at Blinds.com are giving you up to 35% off every single thing site-wide. It's simple. You order online, free shipping, guaranteed perfect fit, whether you're a do-it-yourselfer or you allow them to handle the install. Just go to Blinds.com right now to shop their brand new deals, perfect for your spring home refresh, with up to 35% off everything: blinds, shades, interior shutters, and even outdoor shades. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
With a customer referral rating of 96%, Two Men in a Truck Wilmington has proven time and time again they are the top local choice when it comes to all of your moving needs. Offering a wide range of professional moving services, including local and long-distance moving, business relocations, both full or partial packing services and storage, Two Men in a Truck is dedicated to exceed customer expectations and reliability, quality of service, and care. To start your quote, log on to twomenandatruck.com or call 910-210-0224.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint Faith and Personal Development. Join us for Wake Up Our Faith, a real conversation about living out your faith between Sundays, streaming live every Wednesday at 11 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Catch the replay every Saturday and Sunday at 8 a.m. on Wilmington's Big Talker 106.7 FM. Stop by and visit us on the web at uprint.life.
The Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association serves as the advocate for the building industry, advancing professionalism and promoting community involvement. We are a positive force for responsible growth while protecting property rights and the privilege of home ownership. 3 out of every 5 jobs is touched in some manner by construction in our region. Growth generates jobs, maintains our property values, and builds and updates our infrastructure. Join us Friday mornings for the Construction Connection with the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association and the Big Talker FM.
I'm Rob Renz, Marine Corps veteran, entrepreneur, and local business owner. Join me and my buddies on Monday from 6 to 7 for Signal Fire Radio, where we discuss how to successfully transition from the military and become a signal fire in your community. That's Signal Fire Radio, Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. on 106.7 The Big Talk.
Amazing to hear stories of so many folks on Pleasure Island in the neighborhoods and the communities surrounding the Paradise Cove condos that were destroyed during the fire on Friday, and to hear some of the stories of what it took for people to survive, including one that I picked up at WWAYTV3.com as they spoke with a 27-year-old woman who survived a jump from her third-story balcony to escape the blaze. And, of course, fire officials over there on the beach are asking the public to exercise some patience as they look through the investigation into all of this, and an investigation that will likely take days and weeks. The woman claims that the fire alarms and the sprinklers were not going off during the fire. Of course, the high wind gusts that day helped spread the flames rather quickly, and she said that within 10 minutes, multiple structures were engulfed in flames in this inferno that we saw from miles and miles away. And, as this fire remains under investigation, someone is going to, pay the price heavily if, in fact, we find out that things were not up to code and that they were not in working order. Typically, you test these types of things, the fire alarms, the sprinklers, at least annually, along with the actual structure of the building. Of course, a lot of people, and when we get into these small towns where everyone knows everyone, and there's plenty of scuttlebutt that goes around at the local hardware store or the local watering hole. I've been told a number of different things about the actual structures of the building and the firewalls that were meant to contain a flame. In fact, if a fire did break out in one of these condos, we'll find out. Everything is under investigation. I'm not here to try to levy one thing one way or the other, but if the fire alarms and the sprinklers didn't go off, and I know within 10 minutes you don't have much time, but every second counts in those types of instances. And this young 27-year-old woman having to jump, decide that, well, it's either I go or I'm jumping 3 stories, out of my window after I cut open the screen. That is an incredibly brave thing to do in that sort of situation, but also your natural instincts kick in and you realize that there's no way out, and the only way out is to jump. She's dealing with a broken back right now, but seems to be in good spirits after talking with WWAY just the other day. That is one of the stories that continues to be discussed, along with this shooting that remains under investigation. A few of our city officials and county commissioners made brief comments on them on this tragic incident yesterday. Commissioner Jonathan Barfield said that he knew the youngest of the victims, a 16-year-old, who we do not know the identity publicly because of her age. But the commissioner said, listen, I knew this woman. She had this young lady. She had posts on Facebook talking about how she graduated early from high school, despite some of the obstacles that were put in her place. And all indications, were showing that she was, in position to have a very bright and successful future. Well, of course, the life cut short because of this senseless violence. Now, the one comment that kind of, just struck me for a moment was one from City Councilman Charlie Rivenbark talking about how we have to get these guns off the streets. I'm just, my next question would be, which firearms are we talking about? Because we know that a lot of the gun violence, of course, occurs with illegally possessed firearms, and that the police department had been touting the fact that they've been cracking down on many of these illegally illegal firearms that have been in possession in many cases of minors over the last number of weeks. And of course, to echo the national discussion surrounding gun control now, and to think that any law on the book would prevent some of these kids who have no value on their life or anyone else's life to go into a house party and start shooting up the place, Wild Wild West style, is just unbelievable to me. And I think that's where maybe we should start the discussion right there on why kids, have no value or feel that they can just take someone else's life and without any type of, in many cases, remorse for, what they do, or uncertain that, what lies ahead for them. Maybe that's what it is, given that they're told from the very get-go that they're oppressed, that they have no chance to get out. And as they get caught up in some rough business on the streets, that then compounds itself into a place where somebody or some people would actually go into a crowded area and a party and open up fire on people for one reason or the other. The fact that there is no value on life in many parts of our country, particularly within the high-density urbanized areas. That's the bottom line in all of this. So we see these types of shootings and murders on a daily basis across every major city in the country, yet we talk about getting the guns off the streets. We'll see if anything else comes of this as the investigation plays out. And, of course, our county and city officials have been well aware of this for a long, long time on the spike in gun violence. What was it? Just a couple of years ago, we had shootouts in the middle of the major thoroughfares within our city on Carolina Beach Road right near Echo Farms not too long ago, where 2 cars got into a shootout with one another, in broad daylight during lunchtime. And then, Mother's Day of last year, we had a shootout on Eastwood Road right around lunchtime on Mother's Day, a Sunday, where the guy ultimately, came to his death on Oleander as he hit an embankment and slammed into an oak tree after suffering gunshot wounds. This is not new to our area. Yet many of these things just continue to happen on a daily basis without much efforts to call attention to the perpetrators and call attention to the true root of many of these issues that our society faces. But yet the narrative is and the focus is, of course, on the gun and not on the people committing these crimes and what leads these people to carry out acts of violence and in many cases against innocent people for one reason or the other. And the final story, of course, has to do with the vice principal at Noble Middle School who committed suicide and was found on the driveway of his home. And many of the news outlets have been talking with the victim, who was, 16, 17 years old at the time. And I know there's a lot into this story from the early 90s. And we've been hearing a lot from that side. And unfortunately, because Mr. Bostian, took his own life, that is kind of where the story will lie forever, in that we were never able to get the other half of the story, and he was neither able to show remorse for what he had done, get himself, lawyered up and then, push against the charges of what they were so many years ago, or in fact, talk about how he made a mistake. And in many instances, in talking with a middle school teacher at Noble just yesterday, along with a few callers that knew him personally, they claim that he was a stand-up guy. And in fact, the teacher said, man, this is the last guy that we would think would engage in something like this many, many years ago, at a many different time in the world that we're living in today. And we talk about those situations that male teachers, because that was the case many years ago, is the male teacher and the female student. That has kind of that type of situation has played out differently in the schools in years ahead. Now you hear all sorts of stories from people and the teachers getting involved in these types of behaviors. It was a one-time thing, it seems. In some instances, you hear that these predatory behaviors continue. If you did it once, you have likely done it before and will do it again. No one else has come forward to claim that they were harassed or engaged in some type of sexual behavior as a minor with this educator. And some of the folks out there just believe that this should not tarnish his legacy, but in fact, they feel that it ultimately will, because he's no longer here to defend himself. And they claim that, of course, the guy was a stand-up dude. He cared for his students. In fact, two parents that called me had kids at the time where he was a teacher, and their kids were in the school during the time in which he was teaching. And, I don't want to get too much in the details here, but, we're talking about 16, 17, 18-year-old girls and, at the time, young men. And, we want to go to the primitive conversation. Maybe TK wants to get into the primitive discussion on, the ethics and the morals of all of it. Throw it aside, and you get into that situation day by day with one another. And, that's not making excuses, because that's, where we're going to go down this line. If, in fact, people take my words and twist it the wrong way. That's to make excuses for the guy, but people make mistakes. And if this was a, one incident that occurred over a 40-year career that dated back to the 1990s, that should be included in the story as well, along with, of course, the issues that this woman is still dealing with today, obviously, which is why she went to law enforcement and the media. This would be a situation now that I would think could be kept out of the public light. And if this woman needs to get serious help, or has been, she needs to continue to go through that therapy and deal with her situation personally, and that doesn't have to be brought into the public light, in my estimation. But that's just me. Incredibly tragic event, no doubt, for all parties involved. All right, we've hit the top of the hour. Senator Paul Newton is going to join us from Cabarrus County to give us an update on the State General Assembly after the break.
Keeping Holden Beach informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
StarTransfer.com.
The U.S. and Iran apparently about to launch indirect nuclear talks in Vienna.
Efforts to bring the U.S. back into the 2015 nuclear deal on Iran's program are to step up a gear as Iran and the 5 world powers remaining in the accord meet in Vienna, while the U.S. is to start negotiations with Tehran. Also due in the Austrian capital is a U.S. delegation headed by the administration's special envoy for Iran, Rob Malley. The State Department says talks will be structured around working groups that the Europeans will form with the other parties of the accord. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
10 officials have been indicted in Iran over the 2020 military shootdown of a Ukrainian passenger plane that killed 176 people. Iran faced international criticism last month for releasing a report into the shootdown that blamed human error but named no one responsible. News and analysis at townhall.com. GOP Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene briefly suspended from Twitter on Sunday in what the company claims was an error, the second such mistake in 3 weeks.
The Georgia Republican was unable to post to her account during the hours-long suspension, which occurred after Greene tweeted about Easter and retweeted a post about abortion. Twitter confirmed the suspension was a mistake made by one of its automated systems. Greene's account was suspended for about 12 hours last month in what the company also said was a mistake. Twitter declined to respond publicly when asked why Greene's account had been affected twice by the glitch and whether other accounts had been affected as well. Bernie Bennett, Washington.
Major League Baseball has reportedly chosen Denver to host the All-Star Game after pulling this year's Midsummer Classic from Atlanta over objections to the Georgia election reform law, decision that one Georgia tourism official says could cost the Atlanta area economy $100 million when all is said and done. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
Back here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM, we are 7 minutes past the hour on this beautiful day along the Carolina coast. Give us an update on some of the news going on in Raleigh as the legislative session continues at the North Carolina General Assembly. Senator Paul Newton of Cabarrus County joins us on the phone line right now. Senator Newton, it's a pleasure to speak with you here this morning, and I hope all is well on your end.
Good morning. It's great to be with you. All is well. Glad to be with you this morning.
So last week, Republicans in the General Assembly started to pick up the pieces from governors and his year of executive overreach, not only passing legislation to give families a summer school option, but also working to, of course, rein in on the governor's emergency powers. And that means all governors into the future, Democrat and Republican. Can you give us an update on that proposal and how it would take shape if, in fact, it were to become law in the future?
Certainly. So there are a number of bills out there that would do just as you suggest. What seems to be coalescing is a bill that would limit the time in which the governor can unilaterally act, and also with whom he must consult if he wants to continue past a certain time. So a year ago, who would have thought that one person could shut down an economy, shut down our schools, and not consult with his council of state? So the bill I think we're going to coalesce around would rectify both those things. How long and with whom must he consult before executive emergency decisions would continue?
And when you mention the Council of State, this includes all sorts of folks who when you go to the ballot box are across the state, meaning statewide elected officials, the lieutenant governor, the state treasurer, the commissioner of labor, the commissioner of agriculture, the attorney general, the state auditor. These all make up the council of state. And we've spoken with State Treasurer Dale Falwell at length about this. And, he kind of laid it out better than anyone that I've heard from, in this whole conversation, in that why would you not want to discuss, how the state health plan would be affected, or, what the department, that doles out unemployment benefits and how we can, and how the workforce would be impacted. Why wouldn't you want the input from these people who are elected to represent these different groups in this total conversation?
No, that's a great point. And I think we all know from our own lives that our best decisions are made when we ask for the counsel of others, and we don't make decisions in a vacuum.
State Senator Paul Newton of Cabarrus County is with us. This is just one of the many pieces of legislation making its way through the State General Assembly as this session continues into the month of April. At the end of the day, you have the Republicans to vote and pass this in both chambers. Do you anticipate a veto by Governor Cooper? I can't imagine a person in a position of power like the governor of a state signing off on a bill that would limit their powers. That maybe when pigs fly, Senator Newton, that would happen in my mind.
Well, I can't speak for the governor and what he might do, but I think that Governor Cooper has had a good run on having his way in the pandemic context, and I think it's time now for common sense to prevail. And, we formed this state, we formed this country to get away from unilateral, autocratic rule of kings. And, he's had an opportunity to sort of act like a king, and that run should be over. We're a government for the people, by the people, not one person. And these are incredibly heavy decisions that he's making, having significant adverse impacts on our economy and on our school children. And he needs the counsel of others going forward. And hopefully he has the wisdom to see that.
And that's not to say that, even if he had these, conversations with all of these other folks within the Council of State, that anything would change. It's just to say, why not have these discussions openly, transparently, and ultimately, that allows North Carolinians, from the mountains to the coast, to get a better idea as far as, what may lie ahead, rather than sitting on pins and needles every other Tuesday, awaiting the news briefing to see what's going to be laid out there for us.
Bingo. And, when we talk about elections integrity, if you'd like to touch on that, but it gets down to what level of confidence do North Carolinians have in the decision, and process matters. So confidence is higher if he's consulted with Council of State. Confidence is lower if he's operating unilaterally without the input of others.
Senator Newton, as you mentioned, the Election Integrity Act, a lot of talk these days, particularly in the state of Georgia with some new laws that were passed. I think it does more good than harm. There may be some things that are yet to be seen as far as how it would play out in the state of Georgia, but all indications show that it would expand a lot of the abilities for people to vote. It would also, of course, require you to just put your license number or your identification card number on any type of absentee ballot to make sure that the validity of that ballot, you are who you say you are. Yet here in the state of North Carolina, I believe, Senator Newton, a couple of years ago, the voters of North Carolina passed a constitutional amendment on voter ID, yet we still don't have voter ID on the books. It's pretty amazing.
That's exactly right. 2018, some 55, almost 56% of North Carolinians voted to require a photo ID in order to vote. And here we are 3 years later, and because of litigation around that, we still do not have photo voter ID in North Carolina.
Under this Election Integrity Act, what kinds of funds would go? Because the tired old argument is that people don't have identifications or can't get them. This bill, you try to address some of those concerns.
Yes, this bill should take that issue off the table. So in order to understand the bill, number one, people need to read it so they don't just assume a narrative. Number two, you got to think about where we're starting from in North Carolina. So North Carolina has some of the freest absentee ballot rules in the nation. We make absentee ballots available for any reason or no reason. You can vote absentee, and they're available typically 60 days before an election. And we also have some of the earliest voting in the nation, 17 days of early voting plus an election day, so 18 days. So the lingering, criticism of our voting laws is around the photo ID, and that, hey, there are some people that are literally shut in their homes and cannot go get a photo ID, so it's disenfranchising to them. This bill would fix that. We would fund the Board of Elections, fund the governor to go, have a process to ask people to raise their hands. If they need help, they need a free ID, we will come to your home to take that photo. And if you think about the importance of an ID in our society, people need a photo ID to function. I had to give a photo ID to get my vaccination. So I think we're serving North Carolinians better by getting them an ID so that they can vote, so that they can go about the common steps of life with the benefit of that ID. So we're taking that issue off the table, and we're not intending to disenfranchise anyone or suppress any vote. In fact, we want to unlock votes that may not be being made today.
Yeah, frankly, this nationwide campaign against voter ID, in my mind, is completely misguided and, frankly, very condescending in the way they push this narrative that it somehow suppresses the vote if you require some type of identification to cast a ballot, whether that be in person or through the absentee process. What else does this Election Integrity Act intend to do as far as tightening up some of the rules and laws? Because we know this past year, the legislative body in Raleigh, made some changes ahead of what we would see play out. But then in the middle of the game, lawsuits were filed, and the appointed state board of elections tried to make some last-minute changes. In fact, while voting was already going on across the state.
Well, you're exactly right. And for the listeners, what you're alluding to is a secret, collusive settlement undertaken by the National Democrat lawyer Mark Elias, the director of Board of Elections, and the Attorney General. And after voting was underway, they secretly settled a lawsuit, a sue and settle scheme, in order to add 6 days to the receipt of ballots after the close of elections. And that eroded confidence. In fact, the Civitas Lock did a poll that shows clearly that some 40% of North Carolinians did not trust the outcome of the 2020 election. So we need to fix that. So we do have a bill that will end those sue and settle schemes, the collusive settlements. I mean, look, the legislature was a party to that lawsuit, and yet they settled in secret and didn't even involve us. On the one hand, they fought a lawsuit from the blind and the visually impaired because they didn't want to change the rules of the election during an election process, and yet did the opposite with Mark Elias and the Democrat National Party, and did change the rules of the game during the game. But anyway, so go ahead.
I would say that many folks across the country, when we talk about politics, money, in fact, in their mind, dirties the game up just a bit. And to find out that somehow, some way, the State Board of Elections is able to receive private funding or donations to their appointed body. How does that all work?
Well, elections should be brought to you by federal, state, and local government. It is a uniquely governmental function. Elections should not be brought to you by Facebook. So this bill, the Election Integrity Act, would ban private third-party donations to boards of election. If you think about the appearance of impropriety, so if a Facebook foundation is paying for a poll worker that's intended to be there for voter integrity, it raises the question, for whom does that person work? Are they working for the County Board of Elections? Or are they working for Facebook? And just so Democrats can understand our concern with that, imagine if the Koch brothers were paying election poll workers. How would the Democrats feel? So this is regardless of party. We don't need third-party donations raising the appearance of impropriety in our elections in North Carolina. We got plenty of money to take care of that.
And lastly,
last thing, Go ahead.
One last moment on the Election Integrity Act. Senator Paul Newton with us from Cabarrus County. You would no longer extend the deadline for absentee ballots to be received after Election Day. I mean, we've got so much time leading up to the election, whether it be through early voting, the ability to request an absentee ballot, that we wanted postmarked, dated, and in the hands of the Board of Elections, by Election Day, instead of the extended period at which you voted on last election cycle, to extend that period a couple of days. Of course, as you mentioned, Mark Elias and others wanted to go further than was originally described in the legislative package that you pushed forward. But this would mean Election Day, all ballots are in, nothing counts afterwards.
That's exactly right, and that is. That brings more security. It brings more confidence to the process, and no one's injured because that is the deadline. Again, usually it's 60 days before the election that these absentee ballots are available. This would preclude the issue about, the Postal Service didn't get it there in time. So if you've got 14 days before the election date, then there's not going to be a Postal Service issue there. And, in fact, Joe Biden's own home state of Delaware cuts everything off, all votes that are going to be counted on Election Day. So it just makes sense. And, we are trying to balance free, fair, and secure, and we can't forget secure. And it'll still be free and fair if we impose this deadline. Again, these ballots are available well before that.
Yeah, to make the argument that we don't have enough time to cast a vote for our elected officials is, again, condescending and completely ridiculous, given the fact that we just laid it out. You've got 2 months, basically, through absentee, and then multiple weeks in the build-up to Election Day. And, of course, you can cast your ballot on Election Day as well. Senator Paul Newton of Cabarrus County with us, discussing a few of the items and nuggets making its way through the legislative session in the North Carolina General Assembly. Just quickly, nationally, on this election thing, since it's in the news a ton these days, Democrats in Washington want to move forward with what is known as H.R. 1. That would make a lot of these decisions at the state level moot, in that it would pretty much centralize all processes as it relates to the election cycle. That's not the way we want to go. The federal government not very good at doing much, and now we want to put them in charge of our election process.
Yeah, I think that's patently unconstitutional. That this responsibility is clearly via the Constitution given to the states.
And lastly, as I have you here, there is also a push this session that would decrease the state's income tax rate here in the state of North Carolina. Why don't you just quickly give us an overview of how we've taken the tax burden off of plenty of North Carolinians over the Republican tenure in the General Assembly, and how these efforts continue even into this session?
Absolutely. So we've had excess revenues 6 of the last 7 years, and so I think it's time to give taxpayers their money back. You think about the stimulative effect that would have on our economy. We're not running it through government and then giving them a stimulus check back. Let's go ahead and just reduce taxes. So we would like to reduce taxes from our 5.25% to 4.99%. And we would also increase the standard deduction so there would be fewer and fewer taxpayers at all in North Carolina. And we're talking about the personal income tax here. So we would raise the standard deduction from what's currently $21,500 to $25,500 to match the federal. We'd also like to increase the child tax deduction by $500 across the board. So this is consistent with the GOP brand, which is people know better what to do with their money than government does.
And despite the claims by those in opposition to any type of tax reductions, claiming that we'd be dealing with budget shortfalls and billion-dollar funding gaps, well, the complete opposite has occurred during some of these cycles that we've seen revenues increase, as you said, over the last several years.
Well, that's exactly right. So we have held the line on government growth. We've reduced taxes over the last decade, and here we sit with, even if we're able to implement these tax cuts, we would, and made the statutory transfers, which is the state infrastructure fund, the rainy day fund, we'd have $29 billion, which is more than $4 billion higher than last year's base budget. or this year's base budget. So we have the money to do this. The question is whether we're going to wear sort of the Democrat hat and spend everything we've got, even though tomorrow may be a rainy day, or whether we take the Republican approach, which is more like your family budget, which is let's look at our budget, let's prepare for the rainy day, let's spend within our means, and let's restrain the growth, i.e. the borrowing, that can get us in trouble down the road. And you're right. Prosperity is statistically provable now. This is not voodoo trickle-down economics. We have been very successful attracting job creators and improving and increasing prosperity in our state through Republican fiscal policies.
Consistently lowering the tax burden through the state income tax over the past number of years, the lowest corporate business tax rate of any state that implements one here in the state of North Carolina. There's a reason, Senator Newton, where thousands of people want to move into North Carolina each year to live, work, play, and grow their family, and in due part to the efforts of Republicans in the General Assembly that rarely get any type of pat on the back for the efforts to, as you mentioned, conservatively grow government, but do it in a way in which we're well positioned should the cookies crumble in the future.
That's all right. We understand government needs to grow, but how about let's base it on population plus inflation? That's measured growth, and it will meet the needs of the public without overspending.
And with that said, Governor Cooper's budget proposal would include a massive bond to take out debt to pay for a lot of the things that he would want to implement. Wants to rid the popular Opportunity Scholarship Program from folks on the lower socioeconomic scale who want to give their kid an opportunity to go to a school of their choice, a private institution, among some other nuggets that are in there. And a quick reminder as it relates to public education, Senator Newton, it's been Governor Cooper who has stood in the way of increasing funding for public education over the last number of years because he would not sign on or work with the GOP in developing a bipartisan budget.
Well, you're exactly right. And just focus for a minute on Opportunity Scholarship Program. This is a program that would allow a family earning less than $75,000 to receive $4,200 in scholarship grants to send their child to a private school. We talk about equity. We talk about social justice. Well, how about educational justice? Why is it that only the rich get to send their kids to private schools? That's wrong. I mean, mothers at every income level, fathers at every income level know what's best for their children. Government doesn't. And we've got some kids that are trapped in failing traditional public schools. This is an opportunity to break them from those chains and put them in an opportunity where they can be in a level playing field and get great educational opportunities. But here the Democrats are fighting that, and Governor Cooper will undoubtedly, based on past behavior, veto that, and he certainly doesn't even have it in his budget. Why is that is a huge question I've got.
Well, and of course, many lawmakers on all levels of government, with the financial means, choose private schools over public schools, and in fact, as you said, then vote against the opportunity for the everyday family to have that option as well. Senator Newton, it's been a pleasure, and thanks so much for your time and service to our state.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
That's Senator Paul Newton of Cabarrus County out in the Charlotte area of North Carolina. We're 27 minutes past the hour here on the Big Talker FM.
We interrupt to bring you this horrible news. Experts say we'll see larger numbers and different breeds of mosquitoes to wreak havoc on your backyard, making this year one of the worst.
Anopheles and Culex rati mosquito.
Yeah. Experts also say there is only one defense against this onslaught. Call the Bugman from Bugno Pest Control.
That's Mr. Bugno to you, pal.
Bugno Pest Control's mosquito-killing formula keeps your yard bug-free. Call Bugno Pest Control, 910-367-2501, or visit bugnopestcontrol.com. Take back your yard.
Hey, this is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint and the co-host of Wake Up Our Faith, every Saturday and Sunday right here in Wilmington's Big Talker. We invite you to join with our nonprofit movement by participating in the Portable Faith Community. This is a $10 a month tax-deductible contribution, and you get access to daily encouragement, resources, as well as our prayer community. You can go to wakeupmyfaith.com to get subscribed and learn more. That's wakeupmyfaith.com.
Constructive Solutions is the name of my construction company. It's called Constructive Solutions because I focus on solving what it is my customers need and want, and there's always a way to get the job done. We're in our 25th year serving our community. We handle all types of home improvements and repairs, literally from your crawl space to your roof, as well as commercial alterations. We're a small, family-owned and operated business. My wife works in the office, and my son Dylan is my right and left-hand man. Combined, we have over 70 years of experience. Dylan and I face every project or challenge that comes our way. I learned my trade from my father, who was a builder until his eyesight failed him. I was showing some employees a picture of my father working on the second-story eaves of his home, and I said, "Can you believe he's 82 and up on a homemade scaffold?" They said, "He's 82? I replied, "Yes, and he's blind. Don't ever tell me it can't be done." So if you want quality professional service for your home or business, give us a call at 910-231-6020 or go to markmarkley.com.
Tune in on Friday mornings to hear The Construction Connection, a collaborative effort between Joe Catenacci with the Big Talker FM and Cameron Moore, the executive officer of the Wilmington Cape Fear Home Builders Association. You start the conversation and we bring you the answers as we take a regional, in-depth look at growth-related topics and issues centered around the residential and commercial development and building industry. The Construction Connection, Friday mornings on the Big Talker FM.
Hey everyone, Ben Hawkins here with Cross Country Mortgage. Rates are still at historic lows, and there has never been a better time to purchase your dream home or refinance your existing. With over 300 loan products including conventional, FHA, VA, USDA, renovation, and jumbo, we are certain we have the right loan product for you and your family. Call me today to be pre-qualified to make the offer on your next dream home. 910-352-3373 or visit my website at lendwithben.com.
All right, as we move into the bottom of the hour, local attorney Tom Goolsby is going to join us here in just a few minutes. Bowing to the corporate pressure, Major League Baseball apparently now eyeing the city of Denver, Colorado for its All-Star game this summer. And I can remember when, I'm old enough to remember, the whole Democrat platform was the evil 1%, the disgusting billionaires and the corporations who have obscene profit margins and never, give back to the people. Yet now it seems as if the tables are turned and you flipped a switch, and somehow, some way, now corporate America is the spokesperson for all that is good in the country, particularly when there are efforts by Republicans to change laws or tighten things up or do anything, frankly. Corporate America has become part of the woke crowd, and you hear nothing from Democrats these days on the evil rich people in these corporations and the billionaires who are now aligned with a lot of these efforts to push back against all things that are related to the center-right side of the political spectrum. I remember, and I used to hear this on a daily basis, that corporate America was part of the evil 1%. Now, these same corporations and their CEOs are the spokespersons for all that is good in our country, bowing to the corporate pressure. Major League Baseball now looking to bring their All-Star game to the city of Denver, Colorado, after announcing that it would move its location from the city of Atlanta. We've hit the bottom of the hour. Local attorney Tom Goolsby will join us next.
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWA News. Week 2 of the Derek Chauvin trial began yesterday. The Minneapolis police chief says now fired officer Derek Chauvin violated departmental policy in pinning his knee on George Floyd's neck and keeping him down after Floyd had stopped resisting and was in distress. Chief Madera Arando took the stand on day 6 of Chauvin's trial in the death of the 46-year-old black man last May. The chief says continuing to kneel on Floyd's neck once he was handcuffed behind his back and lying on his stomach was, quote, in no way, shape, or form part of department policy or training. Just days after UNC men's basketball head coach Roy Williams announced his retirement, UNC Chapel Hill moved forward with his replacement, and they didn't look far. Herbert Davis, one of Williams' top assistants and former Tar Heels player, was announced as head basketball coach yesterday. The 50-year-old Davis, who played for Coach Dean Smith from 1988 to 1992, has spent the past 9 seasons as an assistant coach and will be the first black coach in the program's history. Wilmington City Council will meet tonight to discuss a variety of topics. Council will discuss a resolution authorizing the purchase and installation of security cameras at the city's North Waterfront Park, slated to open this summer. There will also be a second reading of an ordinance to reduce the speed limit from 40 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour on Greenville Loop Road, and from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour in the Bradley Creek Elementary School zone. And the city of Southport announcing the North Carolina 4th of July Festival has once again been canceled due to the coronavirus pandemic. Mayor Joe Catenacci cited the governor's executive order, which does not support mass gatherings of thousands of people at this point. Annually, the 4th of July Festival typically draws between 40 and 50,000 people. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with the Storm Track 3 forecast. We're expecting more sunshine as we go throughout the day today, and above average temperatures getting into the low 80s. Inland of the coastline and along the immediate coastline, we top off in the low to middle 70s. Going to be quite comfortable, so make plans to get outdoors, and the warm temperatures are going to stick around late tonight with clear conditions. Overnight lows are bottoming out into the middle and upper 50s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
All right, we're 25 minutes in front of the hour. Local attorney Tom Goolsby joins us inside that 8 o'clock block each and every Tuesday of the week. And our local attorney is with us here this morning, former state senator. Tom, it's a pleasure. I hope all is well this week with yourself.
Oh.
Tom, are you there?
Well,
good morning.
I lost you there.
Oh, you there?
Yes.
Yeah,
hey,
good morning. Hey, how are you?
Here.
Welcome.
I'm good. Yeah, no, things going well. Enjoying the nice weather, and our hardworking legislators up in Raleigh just keep pumping through bills that I'm sure the governor can't wait to veto, whether they're election security. You know, you and I have talked for months and continue to talk about the end run the Democrats tried to pull on our election cycle this last go-round, and looking at the statistics now that they polled the North Carolina people, a startling percentage of voters across all ideologies here in our state are concerned whether the 2022 election can be free and fair. And I agree with Senator Newton, who's put out a new bill trying to deal with this issue. He says that those who ignore these warning signs risk the health of our system of governance, which, of course, there's a large sector of us that are concerned about that. I think there's another section of the population on the left that is very happy with the way things have gone and would just as soon not have us involved in politics and allow them to steer elections however they would like. And that's probably the most concerning thing of all for me.
Yeah, in fact, we had Senator Newton on in the last segment. He kind of laid out, that Election Integrity Act, what it does and what it does not do. it's amazing to me, Tom, no matter how many times, we play this game in the world of politics, that anytime there's an effort by Republicans to do anything, legislatively, whether that be, statewide or, of course, nationally within, the houses of Congress, it is always going to offend somebody or suppress and regress, the progressiveness that we have seen over the course of when Democrats have the power. It never does any good for anybody. Yet, when Democrats push an initiative, it's going to save the free world from impending doom.
Well, I mean, and as Paul probably told you, this whole idea about the free voter IDs, the Democrats have called that racist. And we're talking about spending state money to send, a mobile unit around to people who need help getting a voter ID card to make sure they get it. Somehow that's not a problem, to get your Social Security, your Medicaid, your Medicare, food stamps, aid for dependent children. Just go through the list, the litany of government programs, but somehow it's voter suppression if you make someone show an ID like you have to show when you go into the Department of Social Services, the airport, the bank. I mean, you want to cash a check, use your credit card, check into a hotel. I mean, just name those things, but somehow that all goes out the window when it comes to elections, and of course, that is deemed racist. But it's okay if we're going to extend canvassing an extra 6 days, if we're not going to require a signature on an absentee ballot, if we're going to allow voter harvesting. That's all necessary because of COVID. I mean, again, Joe, they say they have no shame. They'll say one thing and the complete opposite, or take the opposite tack that has no logical sequencing at all, and look at you with a straight face and call you a racist when you just want elections to be fair. I mean it's insane.
This is one of those things where I wish we had a reporter on the street type of thing and segment here on the program, because if you listed 3 or 4 different questions, do you think 60 days prior to an election is enough time to request an absentee ballot and get it mailed in? Do you think that's sufficient time to vote? Do you think the 3.5 weeks of early voting, in person, on location, throughout various polling places in your district, do you think that's ample enough time, along with Election Day? Do you think this provides more of an opportunity for people to go vote, or less of an opportunity? Yet the narrative is, as you just pointed out, is what it is. Yet I think on the streets, everyday people, even if you don't pay attention to politics, if you just broke it down as simply as that, overwhelmingly you would say, the everyday American would say, we've got plenty of time, and if you can't figure out a way to do it in 60 days, you shouldn't be voting anyway.
Well, and Joe, on top of all that, the average American that you talk to on the street will tell you that they feel something is very, very wrong. They feel that there is some undercurrent of the stealing of their voter franchise. They don't feel like things were open and fair. They were concerned. They still are. They got an inkling in the news, regardless of the attempt to suppress those stories about the Elias lawsuit, and the fact that somehow North Carolina couldn't get its votes in on time. Why did it take so long? Why were we like those other states where they had all those voter issues and questions and problems? Why is North Carolina like that? South Carolina's not. Florida's darn sure not. Texas is not. What's wrong with our state? Why are the governor and the attorney general making these deals with out-of-state entities about our voting? So that somehow percolated in the population, and people, whether they know fully what all occurred, like we talked about multiple times on your show, they sense it. It's out there in the public consciousness.
I mean, the fear-mongering and sensationalism that we see within our media it's par for the course at this point, and it's just a shame that a good piece of our country, still gets their news and information from these traditional sources, no matter how many times their credibility is put in jeopardy by their own doing. I mean, we see it down in Florida with this 60 Minutes hit piece on Governor DeSantis, only for a Democrat mayor in the state of Florida to say, "Man, this is total misinformation," and yet CBS does not even bring it up. After it garnered so many headlines Monday morning, they failed to bring up any types of corrections or edits to what they rolled out on Sunday on their popular news program that is watched by millions each week.
Well, and thank goodness it's less and less and less on a weekly basis as more and more people turn away from television. And the nice thing about radio and talk radio is it's as popular as ever. People are going to all the different independent places to get their news and information because people are thirsty for the truth. And the nice thing about the truth is it rings true. People can sense it. They can sense also when they're being lied to and duped. And that is what is happening so much of the time. I look at the attack on people like Matt Gaetz, and they don't have enough time to look at Hunter Biden's laptop, but can literally spend thousands of hours going through some guy's apps and travel records and everything else. But Hunter Biden's laptop, no, we don't have time for that. We can't possibly look at that. Oh, no. He's dealing with the foreign governments and getting paid all this money. We have photographs. No, we don't have any time for that. We're going to check out this Florida congressman and spend thousands of hours and interview hundreds of people. At least for Gaetz, he does have a family with money, and he will have the resources to fight back, unlike the average citizen. But it's fascinating, Joe. The double standards never stop, and the American people aren't stupid. We do see what's going on. We do sense it.
To bring it back, to the state and within the General Assembly, we also discussed with Senator Newton, as we have with you, on the Emergency Management Act and the ability for the governor to basically control all under an emergency declaration, and this bill that would create some checks and balances to that, while requiring the Council of State to move forward with most of the powers to prohibit and restrict activity and business in North Carolina. And the further you dig into this, the more you realize that North Carolina kind of stands out on its own when we talk about emergency declarations that can be declared by the governor. Did you know that North Carolina is one of only 15 states with no time limit on emergency declarations declared by the governor? A majority of states have a 30-day limit, meaning every 30 days you have to kind of go back and revisit this. Of the 15 with no duration, meaning no time limit to declare an emergency and keep it in place, North Carolina is just one of 6 where declarations of emergency can only be determined by the governor. So we kind of stand out on our own here, in this whole situation, which is why, again, Republicans in North Carolina and the General Assembly feel that, maybe we should be revisiting this and, reestablishing some rules when it comes to the decision rights and how long one could keep these, declarations in place.
Well, but like I said, Joe, they can keep, passing all these laws, and all Cooper will do is call them racist, unwarranted, fascist, whatever he wants to call them, and veto each and every one of them. And because we don't have Dan Forest instead of Roy Cooper as our governor, we will just continue to see all the work that the Republicans are doing up there for naught over the next 3.5 years as we move forward into Roy Cooper's second reign as governor. So, all we can blame is ourselves. We didn't get out there and support Dan Forest to the extent he needed it to get him over the top. We got Senator Tillis reelected. The state, of course, voted overall for President Trump, but not enough votes for Dan Forest. And it was Roy Cooper that we as a people needed to go more than anyone.
It's just very. It still baffles, I think, a lot of people how Republicans could do so well here in the state. Even President Trump carries North Carolina. Senator Tillis, of course, in all likelihood, garnered the necessary votes to. Well, in fact, I think Senator Tillis finished with more votes overall than President Trump, and somehow for those votes not to trickle to Dan Forest, I think is still baffling to a lot of North Carolinians out there at this point.
Well, I mean, Joe, they laugh at us. The Democrats look and they know how to run a guy who's clearly not a conservative as a conservative. I mean, people voted for Roy Cooper because they thought, well, he's a nice guy. He's in a gray suit. He talks conservatively, doesn't say anything crazy. He's got to be a conservative, right? He's a good guy, right? He's one of those Democrats you can like, right? And, of course, this is a guy that doesn't have email, that doesn't have text messaging, that keeps his mouth shut, that says almost nothing. And if he says anything, it's meaningless platitudes. I mean, he is the consummate politician. He only takes a stand when he realizes it won't offend people. He never does anything of value. Everything Roy Cooper does is so Roy Cooper can get reelected. That's all it's ever been. That's why nobody knows who the guy is. Nobody recognizes his voice. If he walked into your store this morning, you wouldn't know who he was. I mean, he's almost like a ghost. It's amazing that he can actually sign his signature and fill out a suit. I mean, he's almost invisible.
Tom Goolsby with us, local attorney and former state senator. Tom, as we look at business from the legislative branch of our state government to your realm inside the courtroom, is there anything going on right now within the judicial system that we may point our listeners' attention to? Because I know for a long, long time, just getting back to the business of the people in the courts was a tough thing under the former Supreme Court Chief Justice. Of course, the voters of North Carolina overturned that election. We have a new Chief Justice in Paul Newby leading the Supreme Court, although Democrats still have a majority, 4-3 now in that body of the state's highest court. That changes things a little bit, though, in how business is conducted. Have we seen any specific changes that you may want to point out?
Well, it is. And as I talk to judges and district attorneys who, when we had to deal with the prior Chief Justice, and folks need to understand the Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court runs the court system. He runs or she runs the administrative office of the courts, and they're the individuals, the administrators who run our courts, who help, set everything up and make sure it functions properly. The Chief Justice is in charge of a vast array of bureaucrats and administrators. So when you've got a Chief Justice who is not running a tight ship, and it was not that way in the past with Chief Justice Beasley, when we had Paul Newby take over, I mean, we have seen, again, a lot of the COVID stuff has been backed off. The courts are more accessible now to people to be able to come into them. One thing that concerned me was, just having regular people in court to witness the people's business was cut back sharply. And courts are supposed to be public and open. The business that takes place there, the public is supposed to be able to see. So we're getting back to that. People are able to come into the courtrooms more freely. Their witnesses, their family members who just want to attend. I mean, literally being told in the past, you can't come in. Oh, it's all for health and safety and this, that, and the other. And of course, I'm concerned about, hey, wait a minute. What about truth, justice, and the American way? What about that? Is that okay if we could enforce that in our courtrooms? Well, now that we have Chief Justice Newby there, we're seeing more and more of that and more of a focus on it in our courtrooms being more accessible to people. So I'm happy to see that happening. We're getting back to a normal schedule because in many cases, Joe, justice delayed is justice denied. And I'm very glad to see that that is ending and we're getting back to trials with appropriate safety measures and those types of things as we move forward. So things are getting better.
I mean, when you tie up things for the better part of the past year, I mean, the right to a speedy trial doesn't necessarily play into, the rules that we make up during a pandemic that we have a lot of information on, but don't want to follow the information because, it is in opposition to the narrative or the political posturing or the power that many of these elected officials have enjoyed throughout all of this time. So this kind of puts, everyone, whether it be just for a minor offense or, some of the highest crimes, that this puts everyone's life on hold. And that doesn't do anyone any good when we talk about, moving things through the system.
Well, and it's been really tough for people who had court dates continued, and our clerk's office has worked really hard to notify everybody. But again, with the COVID stuff, people have just gotten out of sorts. And if you didn't appear at a court date and your case was called and failed, your license was suspended, then you've got even more hoops to jump through because access in the courthouse was very limited. The ability to get a DMV appointment, you had to make that online. And then, so you could get poor folks that got behind the power curve. Now, the nice thing was, I will say that, that our police were much more reasonable in helping people out who were having issues with getting tags renewed and licenses renewed. So the good thing is America's still America, and a lot of people work together to try to help folks. So we're getting back to normal, and it's just slow, but I feel like we're going to get there.
When we talk about making an appointment for the DMV, you're looking at a month or two before you can get in front of, and you better have all that documentation you need when you go in front of, one of their employees, because they're letting only, of course, appointments in at one time or another, but it could take up to 1 or 2, maybe even 3 months down the road to get an appointment for the NC DMV. And then we can compare it to, of course, the efficiency and the effectiveness of the U.S. Postal Service. And, they are, these organizations, the brunt of many jokes in society, yet many of these same people that issue complaints about the ineffectiveness of these sorts of agencies are the same ones that want to put the government in control of everything that we have going on in our lives. Doesn't add up.
Well, Joe, what gets me is the same people who are hating on the police, who are saying all the bad things about cops. They're the same ones who don't want you to have a handgun or a shotgun to defend your home. They're the same people that want to strip you of your Second Amendment rights. So I'm like, well, who are you going to call? When a guy's kicking your door in and your 18-year-old daughter who's off at college is calling, daddy saying, hey, I know you're 120 miles away, but I'm about to be assaulted. What do I do? Well, you can't call the police because, they're the bad guys. You can't have a gun because guns are evil. So what do? You just get raped and murdered? How does this work? That again, Michael Savage has said for years that liberalism is a mental disorder. And for the life of me, Joe, how can you hold two completely disparate points of view in your mind at the same time and reconcile that and not have your head explode? That's why I could never be a leftist. Think about that. You hate the police and you hate guns. Are the bad guys then the good guys? How does this work? How do you stay alive in that world? Makes no sense to me.
Well, of course, when we hear, as we bring it back to the election process, every time a Republican or someone on the center right, moves with an initiative, it's always going to offend somebody, repress somebody, suppress somebody. It's going to do something that's going to, of course, take away from one certain group of people. And nearly every issue, they're able to find a victim. It's amazing how they use this playbook time and again, and it still resonates with a good portion of the American people.
Well, if you're walking through life asleep, you don't think things through, you have a media that does nothing but take press releases and read them as somehow being news, no investigative journalists anymore. And to me, Joe, you could make a news broadcast fascinating and garner incredible amounts of audience if you just did a little bit of research, if you just brought some real facts to life. People are fascinated by the truth. But if you don't spread the truth, you have an ignorant populace, again, who just fall for the same tricks over and over. As P.T. Barnum said, a sucker's born every minute. And, you know, the nice thing about your audience is they're listening here because they're not suckers, because they do want to know the truth, and they don't want to be duped.
Local attorney Tom Goolsby with us every Tuesday morning just after 8:30. Great to have him on board and a friend of the program. Tom, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for the insight as always.
Thank you, Joe. Have a good one.
Tom Goolsby with us, former state senator, with us inside that 8 o'clock hour every Tuesday here on the Big Talker FM.
Do you or someone you love suffer from back pain, poor circulation, or struggle to get a good night's sleep? Do you just need help getting into or out of your chair? US Med Express is Wilmington's leading supplier of golden technology lift and sleep chairs, carrying a variety of models in our showroom at 1733 Dawson Street. Our chairs lead the industry in power lift recliner features and advances in technology. Our chairs are FDA certified as medical devices, which means it's 100% tax deductible and helps with a number of medical conditions, including arthritis, poor circulation, and sleep apnea. Give us a call today at 910-500-6162 or stop by and experience our chairs for yourself at 1733 Dawson Street. That's 910-500-6162. 1733 Dawson Street in Wilmington. US Med Express.
Hi, this is Justin Humphreys from the Humphreys Law Firm on Eastwood Road. The Humphreys Law Firm is located in Lumina Station, Wilmington, North Carolina, practices civil litigation, intellectual property, commercial, and residential real estate. Please give us a call at 910-332-0721 or visit us on our website, which is www.humphreysfirm.law. You can also listen to me every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Big Talker 106.7 FM.
Here's 1 minute of tree knowledge in 30 seconds with K.O. Davis.
It's important that you have somebody, a trained professional, to trim your trees. There are these guys out there that just hack trees, and that's the worst thing in the world that you can do. Don't let somebody hat rack your trees. That's tree term for hat rack. You know how they just cut a tree and it looks like it's just got like a hat rack? These guys just go up and just cut the trees off, and they don't cut it back to the proper spot. Call us, because we care about your trees.
Visit KO'sCoastToCoastTree.com.
Don't let some yahoo hat rack your trees.
Keeping Bald Head Island informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. With illegal immigration surging, apparently some in the Biden administration think the Trump border wall wasn't such a bad idea after all. The Washington Times reports Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas is talking about restarting wall construction. The aim would be to plug what the secretary refers to as gaps in the existing barrier. Big League Baseball's Midsummer Classic reportedly heading to Colorado.
Major League Baseball plans to relocate the All-Star Game to Coors Field in Denver after pulling the game from Atlanta. That follows objections to Georgia's new voter integrity law. The commissioner's office expected Tuesday to make it official. The Colorado Rockies will host the game. MLB pulled the July 13th game from Atlanta in response to Georgia Governor Brian Kemp signing the bill into law last week. Jason Walker reporting.
And former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie is accusing President Biden of stoking racial strife by the way he criticized Georgia's new election law.
Christie says Biden is violating his own guidance when in his inaugural address he condemned allowing every political difference to become a raging fire of partisan divide.
When you use the words Jim Crow to describe something like this, you're setting the raging fire.
Christie tells the Salem Radio Network the law vastly expands the kinds of IDs that people may use to vote.
This is not onerous and it's certainly is not racist in any way.
Chrissy knows that voter ID is required in several states run by Democrats, including President Biden's home state of Delaware. Bob Agnew reporting.
The Minneapolis police chief who called George Floyd's death murder soon after it happened has testified that Officer Derek Chauvin violated department policy when he pinned Floyd's neck beneath his knee for more than 9 minutes. Wall Street Dow futures are down 66 points. NASDAQ futures 3 points higher. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Mounds and mounds of fur. Our hairballs have hairballs.
Our cat Mama, she's 10 years old. She has dandruff and an oily coat.
I have 2 cats, Zippy and Daisy. Daisy sheds like crazy.
If you love your pets as much as I do, you want to do what's best for them to live long, healthy, happy lives.
DINOVITE.com. I just tried this wonderful Catalicious Dynavite for cats, and my cat has been on it for 2 weeks. She is not scratching anymore. She's not chewing anymore. It is just the best.
I was thrilled when I heard Dynavite for cats was coming out because I'd seen the changes in my dog. To introduce my cat to Dynavite, I took the advice from Dynavite and put their food on top of just a scoop in the bowl, just to get them used to it, because I know if I even switch one little thing, they put their nose up to it. There was not one problem.
Dynavite for life. You won't believe how happy your cat will be.
DINOVITE.com.
A cyclone that battered southern Indonesia earlier this week blamed for more than 80 deaths.
Cyclone Seroja smashed into the islands of central Indonesia on Monday, causing widespread damage on Flores before moving on to East Timor. The number of dead and displaced has been climbing steadily. Rescue teams and helicopters are rushing to find dozens more who are thought to be missing underneath mountains of debris. Indonesian officials say that some villages on Lembata Island will never be inhabited again. Weather forecasters are warning that extreme conditions could continue in the region for several more days. The islands are used to flooding during the rainy season, but the head of Indonesia's weather service said tropical cyclones appear to be becoming more frequent.
That's a BBC's Will Leonardo. Efforts to bring the U.S. back into the 2015 Iran nuclear deal are gaining momentum, with the U.S. due to start indirect talks with Tehran about re-entering the nuclear accord. News and analysis at townhall.com. Even though nearly a fifth of states do not have mask mandates, some businesses require employees and customers to wear them, and that is perfectly legal.
18 states currently have no mask requirements, and Indiana expects to end its mandate today. But company owners whose businesses can range from manufacturers to retailers to massage therapists say they want to protect their staff and their customers. And the law is on their side. Businesses are private properties, so owners can set the rules, and employers are obligated under federal law and some state laws to provide a safe workplace for their employees, and that can include requiring everyone on the premises to wear masks. I'm Julie Walker.
New York, Maryland, and Delaware among the latest states to make COVID vaccines available to anyone over the age of 16, and several more states expected to follow suit later in the month. More on these stories at townhall.com.
The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's amore.
7 minutes past the top of the hour. You're tuned in to the Big Talker FM. A beautiful morning here along the Carolina coast, and it looks like it'll stay that way for the next few days, moving into the middle and back end of the work week as we continue the conversation at BigTalkerFM.com. Of course, available through our YouTube channel at The Big Talker 106.7 FM, on Facebook and Twitter. A video portion of the show available each and every morning as well. Our call-in number is 910-299-7535. Allie Bloyd is with us right now, a conservative commentator based out of Louisville, Kentucky. And Allie writes about guns and gun safety in her new book, Uncensored America, from the standpoint of a gun owner, a wife, and a mother. Guns and firearm reform are once again atop the mind of many Americans as we saw these mass shootings, of course, taking very different turns in the media based on how it all played out. The suspects, the machine that was used in these shootings in Georgia and in the state of Colorado. It's amazing the one in Boulder, Colorado has just basically disappeared from the news cycle for one reason or the other, but the one in Atlanta continues to garner attention. Allie, it's a pleasure to speak with you here this morning, and I hope all is well on your end.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
So what kind of inspired your book, Uncensored America? And I know this topic, it pops up in the news cycle. It garners a ton of attention. You hear the typical talking points from many on the left that we need gun control. If only we banned certain firearms or extended background checks, would all of this stuff kind of go away? At least that's their plea to the American people.
Yeah, so overall, this book was mainly published out of what I thought to be a huge need. I've been writing poetry my entire life, and I read about the world around me. So obviously, in the last year especially, but over the last several years, I've been writing about a lot of the topics that are very important to a lot of Americans or that are simply ignored or unknown by many others. This book is really talking about some of those difficult subjects that we are either avoiding because we don't know how other people are going to respond, or people simply don't know that they're taking place. And so this book was my way of really trying to bring this information to light in a way that's non-threatening, non-aggressive, but really can change the way that people think. So as a Kentucky girl, I just bought a farm. I've grown up around guns. I feel like owning firearms is something that should never be taken away from us, and the legislation that's up to Congress to hopefully not pass, it's pretty terrifying, and it would definitely be a slippery slope where I can very easily see most of our gun rights being taken away if that's allowed to stand. So really just want people to wake up, take notice, and put in the work. Do the steps that you need to do in order to make this country a better place, and start speaking up for what you believe in. So that's kind of the long answer, but I'm really excited to try and explain gun ownership from this perspective, maybe to people who have never really thought about it like that before.
Well, and when we talk about certain things that are filled in these gun control bills that are being pushed in Congress, dealing with background checks, we've extensively spoken with our elected sheriff, other law enforcement agencies, and firearm stores, along with certified firearm instructors, and they have methodically gone down the list of things that are required when it comes to background checks for firearm possession in the state of North Carolina. At least everyone has sort of a different way of looking at possessing a firearm legally, in our country, depending on which state you live in. We also know there's the good old statistic where 99% of legal firearm owners will never commit a crime involving a firearm. And then there's this debunked, myth that if only, we took away AR-15s, would all mass shootings go away? The FBI provides those statistics, and it's like 0.1% of murder and homicides in our country any given year is committed by people who possess an AR-15. These are facts, and they're very stubborn things in this conversation, Allie.
Yeah, I agree. This is just one more example of people simply being uninformed on the issues, and so they're listening to the lies that are being spouted by the people in positions of power. And you're exactly right. People are not committing a lot of crimes with these guns, and we have so many other murders committed with weapons that are not guns at all, not even just pistols, but not guns at all. It will never have an impact on these types of crimes. Mass shootings are horrific, but they're still fairly rare and uncommon if you look at the overall country and the types of crimes and murders that are committed. and it's horrible, but we can't use these little incidences to federally change gun law in all 50 states. We need to say our state is our business. We are legally allowed to have firearms, and we're going to continue to give our state residents the direction that we want them to have based on their firearm ownership. Every state is different, and you simply can't expect every single state to act the same when it comes to this. But they're simply trying to take away our gun rights because it makes us easier to control, not because it will have any impact on violent crime. And it's really sad, but that's the fact of it.
Allie Bloyd is based out of Louisville, Kentucky, author of a new book, Uncensored America. She delivers thought-provoking insight from the standpoint of a gun owner, a wife, and a mother. Allie, in my conversations with those who own different firearm ranges within our region, they host different types of promotional nights, and they say the one night that is sold out consistently is the ladies' night they hold, once or twice a month. What's with the rapid rise of the woman gun owner? Who is she, and why are guns important to her?
Yeah, well, first of all, I love to hear that about the ladies' night. I wish there was somewhere locally to me that had one of those. But I think it's pretty simple. This world is a dangerous place, and we have two choices. We can either be at the mercy of others that are evil and violent, or we can protect ourselves with the same type of weapon that a lot of these people will be using. So even if someone is not attacking us, but they're attacking someone else, having a gun allows you to defend someone who may not be able to defend themselves. And I also think that having children changes things a lot for many women. You realize that it's not just your life you have to defend anymore. It is someone else's life. And that also, if your life were to be taken, that's no longer just impacting a couple of people in a few different ways. This is literally taking a parent from a child. And so you feel a greater responsibility to protect yourself. And we see all of these crimes happening without a moment's notice. There's no way to ever know when something like this is going to, come to your doorstep, so to speak. And so all of the females that I know, they feel empowered by having guns, knowing that they can protect their life, the life of their children, and we also have a good time shooting. But, ultimately it's not about sport. The Second Amendment has nothing to do with any of that. It is about protection, most importantly from a tyrannical government, which I think is another reason we're seeing gun rates go up. People see what's happening in our government, and they know that this is simply not right. This is one of the only ways that citizens have to fight back, and I think females are really waking up to that. More so than ever before, so I'm excited to see it.
When you really delve into the details as to who the typical woman gun owner is in our country, of course, in this world we live in, we have to break everything up into subgroups and then subgroups and then subgroups because we have to point to somebody who's the victim in one shape or form. When we look at firearm ownership among women in our country, who is the typical firearm owner in the United States as of right now?
Well, that's, an interesting point because it's every woman, really. There is no one group that's buying guns necessarily. This is really cutting across party lines. There are people of all races, of all ages that are buying firearms. And I do think that it's typically going to be somebody that's in their later 20s and up. You don't see as many young females buying them, but, there definitely are those females that will buy them, but they're typically going up in the late 20s, early 30s. And I think that people in any state, of any background, any socioeconomic status, they are buying firearms. And that's what makes this so interesting because it's not really about a specific subset. It's about all of us and females saying, hey, we often are targets of crime simply because we're females, and most people don't necessarily think we would be carrying weapons with us. A man is obviously physically stronger in a lot of ways, and so you simply just say, I am responsible for me, I'm responsible for protecting myself, and it really doesn't matter what you look like or where you come from. Every woman is really waking up and recognizing that, so it's a very interesting trend.
Do you think at the end of the day, as we talk about whatever they claim as to be "quote unquote" common sense gun laws, do you think we know with the House of Representatives controlled by a majority of the Democrats, do you think as it pushes over to the Senate and you have one or two senators ultimately being the deciding factor, the Joe Manchins, the Kristen Sinemas of the world in very red or purplish states, do you think that they jump on board with the Democrats and move forward with these bills from what you're reading up on?
I am terrified to really understand that this is a possibility, that this could pass. Ultimately, if the filibuster is not messed with, then this should not pass. But we have heard over and over and over again that this is up for debate, that we can change the rules. Joe Biden already said that he's willing to use executive order for this, which is absolutely outrageous. But at this point, I would not be surprised if it did pass. That is the state of our government right now, and that is terrifying. So until this is really hammered out with the filibuster, I think that anything is possible. And so that's why you're seeing tremendous gun surges in terms of people purchasing guns. Ammunition purchases have been sky high. There is an ammo shortage, and this legislation is extremely damaging. So if this passes, it is going to be the first step of many, in my opinion, that erodes all of the rights of gun owners across the country. And we've got to be willing to stand up and say, no, I will not comply with this.
Allie Bloyd is with us. New book is out on shelves in the next couple of days. Uncensored America, thought-provoking poetry on faith, family, and freedom, and also, of course, tackles this hot topic right now in regards to firearms and gun control in our country. Allie, good luck with the new book, and if you would like to know more about what Allie does and why she does it, go to her website at alliebloydmedia.com. Thanks again, Allie.
Thanks so much for having me. Have a good one.
That's conservative commentator Allie Bloyd out of Louisville, Kentucky this morning, making a very fair case as to why we should be concerned about the government's intrusion on our Second Amendment rights, and the fact that through her research, finding some very interesting tidbits as it relates to those of the female gender who are exercising those Second Amendment rights all across the country right now with, of course, record numbers of firearm sales. Good luck if you're going to have to find the ammo. You're going to have to go out to, Uncle Roy's, back garage out there in Bladen County somewhere if you want to get some boxes of ammunition these days, because as quickly as they get on the shelves, they're bought. And you're gonna have to. You got to know somebody if you want to buy ammo these days. At least here in this neck of the woods and in many other places across the country. Thanks to Allie Bloyd. New book, Uncensored America, detailing her reasoning behind why she is a advocate for firearms and pushing back against some of these gun control measures that are being put forth in Washington, D.C. We're 20 minutes past the hour. Our phone number is 910-299-7535.
I just died in your arms tonight. It must have been something you said. I just died in your arms.
Most airborne germs and allergens invade through the nose, your body's air filter, its first line of defense. You wash your hands and brush your teeth, but what about your nose? Did you know there's an easy way to keep your nose clean and help your body protect itself? It's called Navage Nasal Care. Navage uses powered suction to clean your nose by flushing out pollen, mucus, bacteria, and viruses. Millions use Navage for fast, all-natural relief from sinus congestion and allergies, and to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and feel healthier without drugs. Navage is easy to use, affordable, and it comes with an absolute guarantee of satisfaction. And 50,000 independent online reviews averaging 4.7 stars show just how much people love their Navage. You wash your hands and brush your teeth every day. Now you can clean your nose and help protect your health with Navage. At Navage.com, CVS, Walgreens, Bed Bath & Beyond, Target, and Rite Aid. Navage. N-A-V-A-G-E. Make good nasal hygiene your new normal with Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
My name is John Hennett, commercial real estate broker and vice president of Eastern Carolina's commercial real estate here in Wilmington. I also have a side hustle as a residential real estate appraiser. If you're interested in buying, selling, investing, or you're just curious about real estate, feel feel free to give me a call, 910-619-3430. But also, I think it's important that we all share our community pride for our hometown here in Wilmington. Small businesses are the lifeblood of our community, and collectively, they represent the largest employer in our city. Therefore, it's important we support small businesses like Eagle Island and Seafood on Highway 421, located between downtown and I-140. Sammy Flowers and his family have been in business for many decades and do a tremendous job with fresh produce, fresh local seafood, and great groceries. I shop at Eagle Island at least once a week, and I encourage you to support small business as well. Remember, with any real estate related questions, feel free to give me a call at 910-619-3430.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
This is Mark Markley, your host of Recovering Hope. I hope you can tune in this and every Wednesday evening from 6 to 7 and Sunday mornings at 10 to listen to real stories of real hope to recover from drug addiction and how so many have turned tragedies into helping others to know there is hope. You can listen to podcasts of previous shows or contact me at recoveringhope.org.
To circle back to the previous segment, so I've been watching C-SPAN a lot lately because I just like the news as it is, right in front of me, so I can consume it without any type of 37-person panel to tell me what to think from what I just witnessed. So I've been watching the George Floyd officer trial there every couple of days, getting tidbits there. And then yesterday, as the trial was coming to an end for the afternoon, the next program just happened to play over as I wasn't really paying attention, and it was the Conference of U.S. Mayors and the public service announcement that began talking about the rise of hate crimes against Asian Americans. And the first two mayors immediately pointed to the shooting that took place in the city of Atlanta. Because, as TK and I, when we got word of the news that very morning, we're like, all right, let's live in reality. As, Ali mentioned, the world is an evil place, and there are whack out things that go on day to day that are often laughed at and scoffed at. But then you have some sexually frustrated, mentally unstable person on the streets that they feel had been, they've been shortchanged by because of his shortcomings, maybe, based on his frequencies, his frequent appearances to the ha-ha spas in which these women were slain, along with, of course, two white people, but the 6 Asian American women were the center focal point of that. And, of course, the conversation that was being put forth by the Conference of Mayors on C-SPAN yesterday. I'm like, oh, I love this propaganda getting pushed now on C-SPAN by the mayors across our country and in every news publication as well. Because I caught an article out in California, no less. Who would have guessed it? The LA Times and every news outlet, of course, in the past couple of weeks, make sure that we do not forget about the Asian women that were killed in Atlanta a few weeks ago when that lunatic in cold blood killed a bunch of people. And by the way, there was another shooting that took place in Colorado, one in California. Nothing on those victims, of course, just the Asian American women, because in the second paragraph of this LA Times article on this shooting that killed 4, including a child, with a 5th person injured in a mass shooting, as they call it, at an Orange County office complex in Southern California. In the second paragraph, and then I started to comb through all sorts of different outlets, in the second paragraph of every news outlet with a story on the shooting the other day in Colorado and then in California, they were sure to mention the Asian women. Not much on the gender, ethnicity, religion of anyone else that was shot and killed, or just the suspect when it's a white guy with an AR-15. Just the Asian women. And here is the article. 4 people, including a child, were killed Wednesday and a 5th person injured in a mass shooting at an Orange office complex. It marks the 3rd mass shooting in the U.S. in 2 weeks, coming after incidents at 3 Atlanta spas that killed 8 people, including 6 Asian women, and at a Boulder, Colorado supermarket that killed 10. Nothing on the 10 victims there included, particularly related to what they look like, where they come from, what religion they profess, or what ethnicity they are. Just that the Boulder, Colorado supermarket shooting killed 10. Well, what we find out is that basically it was a domestic dispute gone bad, a business and personal relationship that existed between the suspect and all of the victims in Los Angeles. One of the victims, a 9-year-old boy, by the way, dying in the arms of his wounded mother. Incredibly tragic. The mother able to survive. Well, why haven't we heard much about this story? Well, because it includes a suspect identified as 44-year-old Amadab Gonzalez, who is also in critical condition after, he exchanged fire with law enforcement. So nonetheless, another terrible, tragic shooting in California last week. I'm just very impressed, honestly, from the media, and I may say that tongue-in-cheek, very impressed with the media, their ability for every news outlet to rip and read it, including the rehash of the 6 Asian American women who were killed in cold blood. So, you want to add up the victims of all of these shootings. We had 30 people, I think, in all killed out of the shooting in California, Colorado. Of course, the guy in Colorado, a guy who maybe had some ISIS sympathies, who was known on the FBI radar, yet nothing was done to follow him or any type of investigation into some of his evil doings and his ability to carry out a crime. As we often find in these types of circumstances, they're on the radar of law enforcement prior to them. And I know we can't do the pre-crime stuff, and I'm okay with that. But maybe, just maybe, if we paid a little closer attention to these types of folks rather than the Catholic school kid from Kentucky who happened to smile at a Native American activist, maybe if that did not dominate the headlines and we put our attention on the bad guys in our society, would we be able to prevent or at least get in the way of some of these crimes before tragedy occurs? But it's amazing. We had 30 people killed in these shootings all across the country. Well, just another weekend in Chicago, I guess you could say. But we haven't heard much about the race or religion of the other victims, only, of course, the 6 Asian American women who were killed in Atlanta by Whitey. And, TK, I know we're trying to get back in the good graces right now of the Chinese Communist Party, so which is why we need to move forward, of course, with, we need to prevent, we need to prevent all these hate crimes towards Asians because, we're trying to get into the good graces of the Chincoms, as the one Rush Limbaugh used to call them, the Communist Party. Maybe, get yourself and negotiate some cheap rates for 5G data on our cell phones. Maybe that is the reason why, we're paying so much attention to, this specific, race and ethnicity as the rise in crimes against these folks continues. Is that the narrative that you're playing here? We're just looking to negotiate better 5G rates for our cell phones with the Chinese-owned companies, which is why we're wanting to call attention to this rise in crimes against Asian Americans.
I think it's so that they won't cash in on the debt
that we have.
Because they could just buy the country, Where are we going to come up with $7 trillion? I think that's why you're always nice to the people you owe money to. It's just natural.
Or you don't answer their phone. You don't answer their phone call or text message.
We can't duck them.
Phone was dead.
We can't duck them.
Can't duck the Chinese. They're in everything and anything that we have, including my phone, which I wouldn't be surprised right now as I go to my search engine if the first couple of Google ads that popped up have to do with some type of Chinese brand. Yesterday, we're at the park, and there's an older couple, grandparents, with a kid that was probably my daughter's age, and they're in the swings next to one another. And the grandpa, in jest, I think, said to his wife, made in Taiwan, the swing, the actual device that you put your kid in. Oh, made in Taiwan. I just looked at him and said, better than China. he got a good chuckle of that. You could really, it's not hard to see and feel the folks out there because everything, the politics has become such a religion because no one believes in God anymore that, it's become such a religion that people wear it on their sleeves in the little nuanced types of comments that they make to even their spouses in a public park. Made in Taiwan. And, I'm like, well, soon to be China, by the way. If you've been following news in the Far East, the Chinese military very heavily, eyeing the country of Taiwan, which is considered to the Chinese communists as part of their land anyway.
China by any other name.
Well, you called it the Orient the other day, and I thought we were walking a fine line on there as far as the commentary. That's walking a fine line, TK. Better be careful. 910-299-7535. Caller, you're with us. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. How you doing, Mr. Joe?
What's up, brother?
TK?
It's been a long time, my man. How you been?
Good. How was your Easter?
It was great. I'm actually finishing up the last of my Easter bread this morning with my cup of coffee.
The woman I live with, she wound up throwing my Easter bread away.
Throwing your Easter? Oh, it didn't taste good, huh?
I don't know. When you figure them out, tell me.
Yeah, good luck with that. Please, for the person that can figure out go ahead.
There's reason for the use of Asian Americans in the current propaganda of the leftist Marxist media. Is not for the China itself, but it's for the United States government under this Democrat Marxist revolution in order to hype up the white supremacists, the white supremacist theory so that way they can use H.R. 1 to pass the laws and then use H.R. 2 right after it to confiscate all legal firearms under this current defense secretary, which is against the Second Amendment, and who was put in position because he was black. That's why we have that narrative. It's not about dead. It's about taking our guns. And as long as they can keep up and ramp up the idea that white supremacists are out there, they will keep the United States Capitol under lockdown, and they will keep on doing this kind of narrative. The goal is to take away legal firearms. Thank you, Joe.
And thank you for the commentary here. And we appreciate all phone calls at 910-299-7535. And, it's all Whitey's fault. That's where we're at here in our society. And TK says, well, you might have a point there. And my thought is, when we talk about the political class of elitists, I think Charles Barkley, Sir Charles, delivered, the best fine dish of American commentary, all, put into a 30-second type of soundbite. Sir Charles Barkley made the commentary. I'm surprised somehow, some way, the guy still has a job on CBS Sports for saying, hey, listen, there's good white people, good black people all over the country. My heart truly believes that. This is a cultural type of dude saying this out on the line there, saying, listen, normal everyday people, you're all good people. You've got kind hearts. You want the best. You show compassion. At the end of the day, let's look at our politicians. No matter whether they're D's or R's, these people, they've all got money. None of them live next to you. They have jobs that are secure so long as they keep bringing the bacon home every once in a while and pulling a fast one over you. Look, I'm bringing your money back to you in the form of this, that, and the other, and you just keep electing these people, and they're living their old elite lives. Let's throw a couple of bombs in the media and divide one another just so far enough where we remain divided and continue to give more power, more influence, and more money to the political state. I mean, who would have thought Charles Barkley would be the guy making the most sense on political commentary of the day here in the year 2021?
Hello, I'm Jeff Rivenbark with WWA News. Week 2 of the Derek Chauvin trial began yesterday. The Minneapolis police chief says now fired officer Derek Chauvin violated departmental policy in pinning his knee on George Floyd's neck and keeping him down after Floyd had stopped resisting and was in distress. Chief Madera Arando took the stand on day 6 of Chauvin's trial in the death of the 46-year-old black man last May. The chief says continuing to kneel on Floyd's neck once he was handcuffed behind his back and lying on his stomach was, quote, in no way, shape, or form part of department policy or training. Just days after UNC men's basketball head coach Roy Williams announced his retirement, UNC Chapel Hill moved forward with his replacement, and they didn't look far. Herbert Davis, one of Williams' top assistants and former Tar Heels player, was announced as head basketball coach yesterday. The 50-year-old Davis, who played for Coach Dean Smith from 1988 to 1992, has spent the past 9 seasons as an assistant coach and will be the first black coach in the program's history. Wilmington City Council will meet tonight to discuss a variety of topics. Council will discuss a resolution authorizing the purchase and installation of security cameras at the city's North Waterfront Park, slated to open this summer. There will also be a second reading of an ordinance to reduce the speed limit from 40 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour on Greenville Loop Road and from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour in the Bradley Creek Elementary School zone. And the city of Southport announcing the North Carolina 4th of July Festival has once again been canceled due to the coronavirus pandemic. Mayor Joe Catenacci cited the governor's executive order, which does not support mass gatherings of thousands of people at this point. Annually, the 4th of July Festival typically draws between 40 and 50,000 people. For more on these stories, head over to WWAYTV3.com. I'm Jeff Rivenbark. Have a great day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm WWAY meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with the Storm Track 3 forecast. We're expecting more sunshine as we go throughout the day today, and above average temperatures getting into the low 80s. Inland of the coastline and along the immediate coastline, we top off in the low to middle 70s. Going to be quite comfortable, so make plans to get outdoors, and the warm temperatures are going to stick around late tonight with clear conditions. Overnight lows are bottoming out into the middle and upper 50s. Get your full forecast on WWAY and WWAYTV3.com.
This news and weather is brought to you by Two Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to twomenandatruck.com. twomenandatruck.com.
All right, as we head into the final half hour of our program here until 10 o'clock, as always, Monday through Friday at the Big Talker 106.7 FM at BigTalkerFM.com. Our YouTube channel is up and running, filled with content each and every day through our airwaves, and of course anywhere around the world. You can find us by downloading our mobile app. You can find us at WFBT, the Big Talker FM, while navigating the Apple iStore for your iPhone and the Google Play Store for your Android. Ashley Varner joins us once again from the Freedom Foundation. She was with us about a week or so ago to give us some insight on a lawsuit that was filed on behalf of a Los Angeles County school teacher who continued to have his dues pulled from his paycheck, meaning his union dues, even though he no longer wanted to be part of the Los Angeles United Teachers of LA Teachers Union for various reasons, and in due part because of the agenda, the political agenda that has been put forth by the LA Teachers Union in order for kids to get back to in-person instruction within the school system. Well, the Freedom Foundation has also filed a first-of-its-kind lawsuit this past week, naming the LA Unified School District, the Teachers Union, and its president as defendants. Ashley, give us some of the details as far as this first-of-its-kind lawsuit that has been filed, on behalf of several parents and students in LA County.
Well, hi there, Joe. Great to be back. Thank you so much. Yes, we are now on both sides of the LA County School District here with our two lawsuits. This one that we filed just last week, it is on behalf of 4 sets of parents who have several children in the LA Unified School District. And it is its first personal injury lawsuit, stating that the union and the union president, because of their politics, because of the agenda and the demands that they are forcing upon the school district, which is compliant to the union instead of the children they're supposed to instruct, all of these actions, keeping the schools closed for more than a year, not having any in-person instruction, not providing the tools and support to these kids, they are causing actual harm, actual damages to these children. And the stories that we've heard from these kids, from the parents, would break your heart. Imagine getting a text message from your 11-year-old who used to be very active in school, very academically excelling. He texted his mother that he wanted to commit suicide. Can you even imagine?
Yeah.
These are the kinds of things that we're doing to our kids, or that the teachers' unions are doing to our children. Parents are just beside themselves. They feel helpless, but they've had enough. They're ready to fight, and that is why the Freedom Foundation is here. We're ready to fight on behalf of these parents and their children.
All right. Now, I'm one that thinks our world is filled up too much with unnecessary litigation in the courts, which everyone has a lawyer and files a lawsuit for one reason or the other. In this instance, why do you think there's some merit into what you're claiming, and why this should be decided by ultimately a judge in the courtroom in the near future?
Sure, and understood. I do realize that we are over-litigated, but we are working off of a novel legal precedent, which is called in loco parentis. That's obviously Latin for in the place of the parent. That is based on English common law, goes back over 500 years, meaning that when we choose to send our children off to school and the parents are not with them, the school system, the educators, then have a charge in the place of the parent to advocate and to make sure they're looking out for the best interests of the child. And by the school system allowing the union to dictate when they're going to open, whether they're going to come back, what kind of instruction the children can get, if they get any at all, the school system is failing the children. They are causing harm and damages, and they have allowed themselves, the tax-paying educators, these are taxpayer funded. This means that we are investing in our children's education. We're getting nothing back on our investment, and they are being run by a private third-party union who, while they are taxpayer funded, they are not elected. They are not accountable to the taxpayers, but we need to hold the school system accountable to the taxpayers who are paying them and not getting anything back.
Yeah, kind of ridiculous in that much of the country, or at least in our parts, that we're getting back to school. There is some in-person instruction for our youngest children in our elementary schools, and our middle and high schoolers are getting back to class for the last couple of months once their spring break wraps up. I think it's too little, maybe too late, but good to see it moving forward, and this needle moving forward in large part because we're seeing all of these studies and the different research and the input that you're hearing from parents, of course, out on the other side of the country. Along with the fact that they've taken this time not only to talk about the COVID situation, but also issues that have nothing to do with the current situation that's presented in front of us. I mean, we're talking about a massive a re-engineering of the way our school looks like and our society looks like through this agenda that this teachers union is pushing along with many others across the country.
That's right. They say that they don't want to come back because they're worried about COVID, but their demands have nothing to do with health and safety or educating the children. They want to defund the police, which is the reason for the last lawsuit that you just spoke about. They want to defund the police. They want Medicare for all. They want more money for the homeless in Los Angeles County, and they want a payment from the federal government to boost education and give themselves a raise. We are actually talking about teachers saying that they deserve a raise for hazard pay. I know that I live on the East Coast as well. I'm up in the D.C. area. Virginia teachers are getting a 2 to 3% pay increase for next year. Why? We're not getting our children educated. They're suffering depression, weight gain, outbursts, emotional, mental decline, and yet the teachers the teachers' unions are patting themselves on the back. We know that there are a lot of teachers who want to get back to their kids, who are trying their hardest. They're being run by the teachers' unions as well, and that's why the union needs to be held accountable.
Yeah, never let a good crisis go to waste, as they say. Let's use one issue to push a whole slew of others, and hope if we just mess things up enough, and mish it and mosh it together, that we get our way. And there may be some merit to some of the things that they're pushing, but there are separate conversations that should be had when we talk about whether or not we're going to expand Medicaid or increase funding for and salaries and pay raises for teachers. Should be a separate conversation as compared to where we're at now and trying to get our kids back because of COVID fears and the inability to do so, at least in Los Angeles County and many other states across the country. At the end of the day, as this gets presented into the court, what is the hope? What's a win? What's a winning situation for the Freedom Foundation and these 4 sets of parents that have filed this lawsuit?
Well, we are asking that we either get back into the classroom immediately, or the money that is used, or the taxpayer amount used per child per year, actually gets given back to the parents to offset the costs that they've had to undertake to put their kids in other forms of education. And in fact, this is kind of breaking news for you guys, but last night on the West Coast, we filed a temporary restraining order to try to get an immediate hearing in front of a judge that I believe is going to happen Wednesday morning. So hopefully I will have some good news for you, but we're trying to make this happen immediately, get these kids back into class, or give the parents back the taxpayer dollars that aren't being used to fund their kids.
Yeah, that's a big effort that's going on across many parts of the country. This idea of funding students instead of the systems. And, if we're not going to get into any sort of, in-person instructional, why not, divvy up a portion of that money, the per pupil spending, get it to the parents. And the idea is that the parents, the guardians, those who take care of kids at home are best suited to choose the best form of education for, their children. There's obviously a disconnect there in that the big centralized part of our government believes they know better than those parents inside the home. That's amazing. This very big gap that we're trying to fill here in this overall conversation as far as funding for our school-age children.
Yes, and what we really hope, and I'm so glad that you had me back on, we want to talk to everybody around the country, not just in LA County. We want parents who are in other states who still have this same frustration. Band together, find some trusted fellow parents, talk with some attorneys. Let's see if we can make this more of a national movement of just saying to the teachers' unions, you don't get to run our children's education. We need to have control. We need to take that control back. So I just want to encourage parents, if you are listening, if you are in a similar situation, freedomfoundation.com, please go there. We have contact information available. We may not have attorneys who can help you, but we will certainly try to help you find some, and we can have a conversation.
Ashley, thanks so much for the time this morning.
Thank you, Joe. Pleasure.
That's Ashley Varner from the Freedom Foundation giving us some insight on a first-of-its-kind lawsuit filed last week in the state of California against the L.A. School District. The teachers' union in Los Angeles County filed on behalf of 4 sets of parents represented by the Freedom Foundation, which is an organization specializing in government union abuses. These are 2 different lawsuits that have been filed in L.A. County over the past couple of weeks. One in regards to representation of a teacher who wants out of the union because of this radical political agenda that's being pushed, and they're still deducting dues from his paycheck because that's the way of life in a state like California. We're 10 minutes in front of the hour. It's 910-299-7535 if you'd like to be a part of the program.
We interrupt to bring you this horrible news. Experts say we'll see larger numbers and different breeds of mosquitoes to wreak havoc on your backyard, making this year one of the worst.
An awful using Culex variety mosquito.
Yeah. Experts also say there is only one defense against this onslaught. Call the Bugman from Bugno Pest Control.
That's Mr. Bugno to you, pal.
Bugno Pest Control's mosquito-killing formula keeps your yard bug-free. Call Bugno Pest Control, 910-367-2501, or visit bugnopestcontrol.com. Take back your yard.
I'm K.O. Davis from K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree, and I want to be your tree man.
When your trees need cut, 2 letters to know. One is a K, the other is an O. K.O.
Tree man. Proper trimming is the most important thing that you can do, so don't just hire anybody to do it. You need someone that knows what they're doing.
K.O.
Call the professionals at K.O.'s Coast to Coast Tree and visit KOTrees.com.
One Love Tennis started in 2013 to give back to young boys and girls. We now go through 460 kids a week that are learning about life skills, learning to succeed in life through academics and tennis. Putting those two together, if you do them well, you can write your own ticket. To get involved in this program, go to our website, one-love-tennis.org.
Parents, how old were you when you paid off your student loan? Are you still paying for it? Student debt can be crippling, and today it's even more important to keep debt in check. Help your student build a brighter financial future by encouraging them to attend Cape Fear Community College for the first 2 years. CFCC costs thousands less than four-year schools, and classes in our university transfer program are accepted at four-year schools across the state and beyond. Help your kids get a head start academically and financially at CFCC. Learn more at cfcc.edu.
Hey guys, this is Alan Perry from Perry's Emporium, and it's my annual Diamond Expo. And guys, I've got millions of dollars in diamond inventory for you to choose from this month. Loose diamonds, diamond fashion, diamond engagement rings, and so much more. It's raining diamonds here at Perry's Emporium in the month of April, so don't miss out. Come see me this month at the corner of Shipyard Independence or online at perrysemporium.com for the biggest diamond expo ever at Perry's Emporium. I'll see you when you get here. Perry's Emporium at the corner of Shipyard Independence and on the web at perrysemporium.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Gabe Frank of the Frank Institute, and I wanted to tell you about our IV vitamin, infusion, and hydration therapies. These IVs are the most effective treatment for vitamin and nutrition deficiencies available, and with our wide range of offering, your treatment can be tailored to your specific needs. Whether you struggle with hydration or nutritional deficiency, injury recovery, low energy, please feel free to check out our IV infusions today. Schedule an appointment at 910-679-8534 or check out all our treatment services at www.frankinstitute.com.
Somebody has to be offended by that as we round out our program. If you are, give us a call at 910-299-7535, and we will direct you to the quickest area in which a mental health professional will be available for you. If you are triggered by, what is that, Looney Tunes? Or that's all, folks.
That's the right? Warner Brothers Merry Melodies.
No, the Merry Melodies, the old Saturday morning
Porky
cartoons.
Pig and all those guys.
Yeah, Elmer Fudd. I mean, Elmer.
He took away his gun, but they can't take away his music.
Yeah, they took away his shotgun because Elmer was fighting some. Wanted to get after bugs. That's a bunny, by the way. I'm wondering if as we report this to you, this groundbreaking news, whether or not we should utilize the proper pronouns to describe Bugs Bunny. Male rabbit, is that what we're going with here? So his, so we got to call it it? No, I think that's, out of the AP style book, apparently, according to the recommendation made by the opinion editor at one of the NPR news stations across the country. He wrote a whole article about how we need to make sure that we properly use pronouns when describing animals in our stories. And the AP style book, which many journalists refer to as far as the proper structure of a news article, is put forth that we are utilizing, because we don't want to offend the animals out there if we do or do not know their gender at the time.
Okay.
Guy has a little bit too much time on his hands. If this was actually read and overviewed by another editor and said, yeah, this is a good idea, let's post it.
I'd like to see what Frunkin Wagnalls has to say about that.
So apparently, in some news that you're not hearing around the country here this morning. The Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas told department employees that he may restart the border wall construction to plug what he called, quote, gaps in the current barrier. So my thought was on this, walls work, they don't work. Let's put them up across and around the Capitol. By the way, what happened to that guy who drove through the barricade and killed a police officer last Friday? Because we knew immediately after that occurred that everything was breaking news on every news channel, and immediately the slobbering media couldn't wait 2 seconds to hit send on their social media saying, oh, must have been another crazy white Trump supporter out there creating chaos in our Capitol, going after our politicians. Well, only to find out that the guy was a supporter of Farrakhan, the same Farrakhan who's still allowed to project whatever he wants on social media without any type of muzzle put over him or any type of suspension of his accounts for all the crazy things that he has said over the years. And so that story also quickly faded into the sunset, and a lot of initial tweets and posts on social media by the members of the glorified media, they, in fact, were then deleted very quickly. And now, apparently, what was a crisis before it was a crisis, and it wasn't a crisis, it was an issue, and before they were cages, they were detention facilities, and now they're centers to house migrant families. You know how all this goes. It's all a big word, scramble.
It's a dumpster fire.
That's a good way to put it here this morning. So apparently now the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas is telling employees that he may restart the border wall construction and plug in what he called gaps in the current barrier. So what we're saying is the wall actually has worked in certain areas between Mexico and the United States as far as deterring, the human trafficking of people from drug cartels in Mexico into the United States. And a conversation with ICE employees last week, defund ICE, by the way, Mr. Mayorkas was asked about his plans for the wall, and he said that, well, yeah, President Biden canceled the border emergency because there's no emergency on the border. It's just, tens of thousands of people fleeing into the country illegally, every single week, and halting money for, the construction of the wall, that he's working on finishing some quote-unquote gaps in the wall. So that's where we are in regards to our southern border. So what we're saying is Orange Man Bad may have been onto something as far as what works along our southern border and what doesn't. And as we round out our program here this morning, the latest installation of Play Stupid Games, Win Stupid Prizes. A climate protester was injured this past week after he fell while climbing the facade of a bank in New York City. A video of the incident shows the protesters scaling the Manhattan Bank while other protesters chanted, "People over profit, people over profit," to the beat of a drum, and a man who did not appear to be part of the protest warned the climber to get down. And what happens to the climber? Well, climbed to the height of an overhang above the bank's first-floor entrance before he lost his grip and fell to the concrete. And as the protester moaned in pain, black paint seeped from his backpack, and a crowd surrounded him, asking for who? Well, none other than law enforcement to come and help the man who trespassed on private property, and then fell off the first-floor overhang of the Manhattan Bank. People over profit, win. Play stupid games, and guess what? You win stupid prizes. We'll talk to you tomorrow, Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. Brad Palumbo will join us as part of the Foundation for Economic Education at fee.org. We'll also hear from Mike Kucharski, who operates the largest refrigerated trucking company in the U.S. of A. Looking forward to the conversation with Mike tomorrow, along with Brad Palumbo in the third and final hour of our show. Have a great day.
Keeping Wilmington informed. The Big Talker 106.7 FM WFBT, Carolina Beach.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. President Biden set to